Chapter 1041. Several able-bodied men from the Aikido tribe rushed over and surrounded Arbor. They fiercely pulled out the scimitars at their waists and pointed them at Arbor. "Are you looking for death?" Xiaomi shouted and pulled out a short blade from her waist. Just as she was about to move, she saw a dozen black-clothed youths appear beside Arbor. Without saying a word, they attacked the able-bodied men from the Aikido tribe. The battle between the two sides was on the verge of breaking out. The entrance of the adventurer's base was instantly filled with the sounds of swords clashing. The junior manager of the base was so angry that he stomped his feet. He gave a few people beside him a look, telling them to quickly invite the leader out. This base was currently managed by the Wind Wolf mercenary group. Their leader, Wind Wolf, was only in his early 30s. However, because of his outstanding ability and high cultivation, he was widely respected. The junior manager of the base sent someone to invite Wind Wolf over while he hurriedly called over a dozen soldiers. He wanted to go forward and separate the group of people who were fighting. However, once the battle started, how could a dozen soldiers from the base be allowed to interfere? The manager was so angry that he stomped his feet and roared, "You guys stop right now. If you make a loud noise and cause a beast tide, I'll tell you, you guys are all dead. Not only that, you'll also harm the innocent people in the base. A bunch of little bastards only know how to stir up trouble all day long." The people who were fighting were already so anxious that their eyes turned red. How could they still listen to the manager's nagging? The people from the Aikido tribe were no match for Lightning's group. After being suppressed for a while, the dozen or so able-bodied men from the Aikido tribe were all taken down by Lightning's group. "Kneel!" Lightning kicked the back of one of the able-bodied men's knee. That man was forced to bend his leg, and his knee heavily hit the ground. He glared hatefully, but didn't make sound. The manager's expression became very ugly. He turned to look at the expressionless Arbor, who was standing to the side. "Miss, are you still not going to ask them to stop?" "Why should I stop? Are you blind? Didn't you see that they were the ones who attacked me first?" Arbor glanced at him coldly. "If someone slaps your left cheek, would you shamelessly stretch out your right cheek and let them continue?" The steward was rendered speechless by her sharp tongue. "Kill him." Arbor coldly passed down the order. He didn't even bother to glance at the youth from the Aikido tribe and directly turned to leave. Ha ha ha. Killing people is such a fun thing. Of course you have to count me in. A crisp voice sounded at the entrance of the base. Everyone only saw a blur in front of their eyes. A swift and violent wind carried a red figure, suddenly sweeping past the entrance of the base, causing sand and dust to rise. Roar! A golden-eyed, blue-eyed tiger with 4 wings suddenly pushed a burly man to the ground. It raised its claws and pressed them on the man's neck. It only needed one claw to crush the man's throat and cause him to die an unnatural death. The Aikido man's face was pale, and his eyes were wide with fear as he stared straight at the huge tiger above his head. His body trembled slightly, not daring to move at all. At this time, they suddenly heard the crisp sound of a silver bell. A 16-year-old girl appeared at the entrance of the base. She was dressed in a bright red gauze that wrapped around her graceful and exquisite body. The corners of her eyes and the tips of her eyebrows were slightly raised. Her eyes seemed to be electrified, curved like the stars and the moon. The demon sex saintess. Everyone was shocked. Chapter 1042. The young girl wore a pink veil and was barefooted, revealing a small portion of her fair ankles. She wore 2 bells on each of her head, which jingled as she walked. The appearance of such a scantily clad, beautiful young girl immediately attracted the gazes of many men in the base, and gasps could be heard from all around. Behind her were 2 rows of more than a dozen young girls carrying small flower baskets. Their gauze fluttered in the wind, and all of them wore veils, revealing only a pair of watery eyes. The crowd didn't all have infatuated gazes. Many of them had a hint of surprise in their eyes. Sure enough, it was incredible up close. It really was the demonic sex holy maiden on a trip. However, Arbor didn't recognize the girl in front of her at all. Lightning led the group back to Arbor's side vigilantly. She took a step forward and whispered to her, "Crown Princess, judging from this person's attire, She should be the demonic sex, holy maiden Seacombe Fulling that has been widely rumored in the streets. Oh, Arbor responded expressionlessly. She also wants to enter the secret realm? Arbor then asked with a frown. A member of the demonic sect, coincidentally bringing people here at this time. She must be aiming for the mystic beast forest secret realm, Lightning whispered. Ha ha, everyone has come from afar. Why must you attack as soon as you meet? At this time, a sonorous voice approached from afar. The commander of the Wind Wolf mercenary group quickly rushed over with a group of people. He cupped his hands toward Arbor, Seacombe Fulling, and the Aikido youth, and laughed heartily. Everyone is young men and women who are going to enter the mystic beast forest to participate in the secret realm's trials. There will be plenty of time to fight in the future. Our small base can't bear everyone's anger. Haha, please don't make things difficult for us, and quickly stop. Arbor frowned slightly, and her gaze swept coldly toward Commander Windwolf. When I want to teach someone a lesson, I don't like anyone interfering. You can't be an exception. After she finished speaking, a water spirit emerged from her hand and instantly transformed into an ice spike. She raised her hand, ready to strike. Commander Windwolf's eyelids twitched fiercely as he looked at the little girl beside him in shock. This little girl looked cold and aloof, no more than 14 or 15 years old. However, at this time, she had revealed one of the 5 spirits, the water spirit. What are you trying to do? The Aikido youth stepped forward angrily. I ordered them to attack you. If you have any anger, you can direct it at me. Arbor glanced at him coldly and aimed the icicle in his hand at the Aikido youth. Looks like a man. The corners of everyone's mouths twitched. In the next instant, he saw the little girl leap into the air. With a terrifying floating flash, she instantly appeared beside the young man. The ice spike in her hand pierced toward the young man's chest without hesitation. Terrifying. The Aikido girl, Akir, covered her mouth and screamed. She hurriedly shouted at the strong men of the Aikido tribe. Quick, what are you standing there for? Quickly go and help young Master Ali. Ali's chest was pressed against by the ice spike. His pupils shrank slightly as he took a deep breath. His upper body leaned back, and he dodged the little girl's attack. When he straightened up with a carp flip, Xiao Mu kicked him squarely in the face, directly kicking him so hard that his nose started bleeding. Many strong Aikido men rushed forward, intending to gang up and attack. Don't come over, the Aikido youth shouted angrily. He clenched the hard whip in his hand, his fingers sweating. Chapter 1043. The Aikido youth gritted his teeth and waved his whip straight at the little girl, sweeping it across the ground, leaving a shallow white mark. You're overestimating yourself. The little girl's figure flashed as fast as lightning, shuttling back and forth under the whip's shadow. She was so fast that most people couldn't detect her movements at all. She circled a few times as if she were passing through flowers and trees before quickly flashing behind the Aikido youth. An icicle shot at the youth's left shoulder with a poof. A ferocious mystic energy came from behind and directly sent the Aikido youth flying. With a bang, he half sprawled on the ground. He. The demonic cult's holy daughter's bell-like laughter came from the graceful figure. With a wave of her hand, the 4-winged, jade-eyed golden tiger released the Aikido youth whose chest it was pressing against with its claws. It jumped up from the youth's body, opened its bloody mouth, and fiercely bit at the neck of the Aikido youth sprawled on the ground. Have mercy! Commander Feng Lang's pupils contracted as he hastily shouted. What a joke! These youths were all from various clans, and even the royal family's orthodox bloodline. Their small adventurer base couldn't bear the wrath of the clans behind these people. Right now, he wanted to send these demons of plague into the mystic beast forest. No matter how they fought in the forest, even if someone died, it had nothing to do with their base. Arbor slashed a sharp blade formed from mystic energy at the holy daughter with a backhand move. He said sternly, Who wants you to attack? Go away, meddlesome fellow. She hated it the most when someone intervened in the middle of a fight to pick up the slack. She didn't fight well enough at all. Lightning's group of hidden guards twitched their mouths one after another. If their crown prince was here, he would definitely feel that such a crown prince consort was so adorable that it touched his heart. Wah! The holy daughter of the demonic cult dodged to the side. Her butterfly wing-like eyelashes fluttered, and a layer of mist covered her watery eyes. She pouted and grumbled, bad girl, hitting people without distinguishing between good and bad. I won't play with you anymore. Most of the people present were attracted by this delicate saint of the demonic sect. Although her appearance wasn't as outstanding as the little girl with the stoic face, her pitch-black demonic eyes were exceptionally captivating. It was as if they possessed demonic power and attracted people's gazes like magnets. Leader Feng Lang heaved a sigh of relief. Presumably, he was also aware of the demonic sect's holy maiden's identity. He cupped his hands towards her and said, "Many thanks to Holy Maiden for showing mercy." Haha, Jinbo, don't scare people. Come back quickly. The saintess of the demonic sect waved at her four-winged, jade-eyed golden tiger with a smile. She then turned to Leader Feng Lang and said politely, "Leader Feng, don't worry. I was just joking with a guest from the west." Commander Feng smiled and nodded before shifting his gaze to Arbor. He laughed and said, "This young lady from Northern Mo. The guests from Northern Wei and Southern Bailey have actually arrived 3 days ago. Come, let me introduce everyone." With that, he hurriedly stepped aside, revealing the 8 people from Northern Wei and Southern Bailey. "Everyone, this one is Wei Nanshu." The young master who spoke was the first to walk out of the crowd. He cupped his hands towards Arbor and the others, and his eyes flickered as he said, "This must be Northern Prince Mo's consort." Arbor nodded indifferently. "This one is Jean Hongluan from Jean Family Castle." The young girl cupped her hands in greeting. Chapter 1044. Dressed in a bright yellow dress, Jean Hongluan's bright eyes revealed a faint smile. The Jin clan fort was the most famous fort in Northern Wei, and there were countless experts in the fort. This Jean Hongluan was the fort lord's only daughter, the eldest miss of the Jin clan fort. Bailey Wu greets everyone. "Consort Prince Mo, nice to meet you. Please take care of me in the future." The youth named Bailey Wu hopped forward with a grin, his round baby face full of smiles. Facing such a smiling baby face, he really couldn't bring himself to be cold. Arbor swept him a glance, and his cold face eased a bit. Bailey Zhen. The 5th princess of the Bailey dynasty wore her hair in a tasseled bun, with only a simple glazed hairpin inserted into it. She was a delicate and pretty little beauty, but one mustn't be deceived by her cloud-like appearance. When she glanced back, there was a bit of craftiness in her eyes. Bailey Zhen was a famous female genius in the Southern Bailey Kingdom. Her talent was close to that of the 2nd prince, Bailey Shi, and she was highly valued by the great king of Bailey. Qin Susu smiled and said, "This one is Qin Susu of Northernmost Qin Estate. Everyone, since everyone is here, let's set out for the Mystic Beast Forest tomorrow morning. All right?" "Excellent." Bailey Wu was the first to raise both hands and feet in agreement. He was tired of waiting for people from various kingdoms to arrive these past few days, and he wanted to quickly set out for the Mystic Beast Forest to properly show off his skills. "If everyone has no objections." "I have objections." A muffled roar came from outside the crowd. He saw a group of people from the Eastern Kingdom surrounding their eldest prince and 3rd prince like stars surrounding the moon, rushing over aggressively. Qin Susu swept them a glance, and her lips curled into a sneer. "What objections does the eldest crown prince of the Eastern Kingdom have? Old 3rd and I were beaten up by your Northern Prince Mo before we even entered the base," the eldest crown prince shouted angrily. The 3rd crown prince hurriedly reached out to tug at his elder brother. Only then did the 1st crown prince notice that the people nearby were covering their mouths as they snickered at them. The crown prince shifted his short and muscular body. His face turned red as he placed his hands on his waist. However, his voice had unknowingly become softer. "Shouldn't you give us some time to recuperate? What are your intentions for entering the Mystic Beast Forest at this time? Do you want to push old 3rd and me to our deaths without doing anything? The forest mystic realm will open in 5 days. Once we enter the forest, we have to find a way to get there. Time is of the essence. If this drags on, everyone can forget about entering the mystic realm. Little Sixth Zheng said coldly. Yes, we can't drag everyone down because of your personal reasons. Do Fengqi also agreed. If you have any objections, you can stay in this base and continue to recuperate. No one will stop you. The people of Northern Mo still dare to be long-winded? If it wasn't for you guys this time, why are we brothers in such a sorry state? The Crown Prince was furious. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Go find whoever beat you guys up. Do Fengqi called out eccentrically and casually tidied her hair. I think you guys should treat yourselves properly first. If you force your way into the forest, who knows if you'll implicate others? The Crown Prince swept her a sinister glance before turning to Arbor. Consort Prince Mo, what do you say? I do have a question. Chapter 1045. Are the two of you sure you want to follow them into the mystic beast forest secret realm? Arbor swept a glance at the Eastern Kingdom's Crown Prince and Third Crown Prince. I heard that if someone who has reached the age of 20 tries to force their way into the mystic beast forest secret realm, they will be obliterated at the entrance. The eldest Crown Prince's face darkened. Everyone knows what you just said. What kind of question is this? Arbor looked curiously at the two Crown Princes of the Eastern Kingdom. You two are already in your 40s, yet you still want to follow a group of youths into the mystic beast forest secret realm. Do you want to court death? You're the one in your 40s. The Eastern Kingdom's eldest Crown Prince stomped his feet in anger and reprimanded. Consort Prince Mo, you're truly too rude. This Crown Prince is 19 this year and has yet to reach 20. My name is Ing Jian of the Eastern Kingdom. The instant the young Crown Princess spoke, Lightning and the others couldn't resist sniggering behind them. As expected, after the conversation between the Crown Princess and the Eastern Kingdom's eldest Crown Prince, everyone present couldn't help but laugh. Indeed, the two Crown Princes of the Eastern Kingdom appeared rather old. Because the people of the Eastern Kingdom had always lived on an island, the environment was closed and vile, and the food they ate was very monotonous. It was said that the average height of the men of the Eastern Kingdom was about the same as that of the women of Northern Mo. The young Crown Princess words pricked their hearts, causing the faces of the two Crown Princes of the Eastern Kingdom to darken. They wished for nothing more than to send this young Crown Princess flying with a single slap. Oh, then I was worrying too much. The young Crown Princess admitted her mistake and nodded sincerely. Apologies. Looking at your faces, I thought you were all in your 40s, so I wanted to remind you. Enough. The Eastern Kingdom's eldest Crown Prince roared at her. Consort Prince Mo, don't randomly change the topic. Oh, then since no one has any objections, let's meet tomorrow at dawn. Tomorrow morning, we will gather here and head to the mystic beast forest. Arbor nodded to himself, turned around, and trotted away. Everyone was speechless. What the Eastern Kingdom's Crown Prince said before, the little Crown Princess didn't listen at all. She directly hammered down the plan and even fixed the time. What else was there to say? No wonder the two Crown Princes of the Eastern Kingdom were so angry that their faces darkened. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll go back and prepare more medicine in case you need it. Bailey Wu laughed heartily. The crowd dispersed one after another, leaving only the Crown Prince of the Eastern Nation standing at the entrance of the empty base with his hands on his waist, cursing loudly. Northernmost capital. Old Master, there's a young master surnamed Mu. He's here to visit you. Surnamed Mu? Xiao Zhongbong stared blankly and exchanged glances with his wife. I'll go out to meet him. I wonder if he's a young master from a talisman aristocratic family. Wei Ziqin hurriedly stood up, unable to hide the anxiety on her face. Master, I will go with you. What's wrong? Seeing his wife's strange expression, Xiao Zhongbong couldn't help but step forward to support her. Don't worry, they won't come knocking on our door. Their Mu family doesn't have that much guts. As the husband and wife spoke, they arrived at the antechamber and immediately saw a tall and sturdy young man with his back facing them. You are a young master from the Mu family? What business do you have? Xiao Zhongbong looked at this unfamiliar figure in surprise. a faint trace of doubt surfacing in his eyes. That person turned around, and half of a jade pendant with a red string slid out of his hand. Wei Ziqing's pupils contracted, and she abruptly fell backward. Chapter 1046. Your Highness, just now, that seventh master Mu from the Divine Province went to the Marquis of Jiuan's estate to pay a visit to the Marquis and Madame. Huifeng's soft voice interrupted Mo Lian's train of thought. His wrist paused, and the words under his pen were slightly crooked by half an inch. He pursed his lips and didn't speak for a long time. After finishing the letter in his hand and sealing it, he asked, "What is it?" This subordinate didn't find out the specifics. We only found out that 7th Master Mu stayed in the Marquis of Jiuan's estate for less than an hour before he left in a hurry. There weren't any issues. It was the Marquis who personally saw that 7th Master Mu out. Mo Lian creased her brows. She also couldn't understand why Mu Jingrue from the upper 3 provinces was looking for Jojo's parents. Have the arrangements for Peace Town been completed? Everything has been prepared. Your Highness, shall we hurry over tonight? MHM. The brush in Mo Lian's hand snapped with a crack. We don't want to leave a single one of them alive. Yes. At this time, outside Balon City, inside an abandoned inn in a shabby town. Faint, muffled coughs could be heard from a dark side room. The candlelight flickered, and Shiosen lit a small, dim yellow lamp in the room. He hastily walked to the bed and said, "Sir, bad news." "Not good. Black Cat and Lady Zheng both died in the pacification pagoda." This subordinate found out after much difficulty. He was actually ordered by the Great King to whip her corpse for 3 days and nights. The Great King is truly ruthless. In any case, a night as husband and wife means endless devotion for the rest of your life. He doesn't even care about the slightest bit of kindness. Cough, cough, cough. Luigi's face appeared to have aged even more after these years. Ever since that old fellow from the Holy Water sect led him up into the sky and was affected by the explosion, his body hadn't recovered much in these 3 years. Especially when he had to hide from Northern Prince Mo, he couldn't eat or sleep well. Sometimes, when he was in the middle of cultivating, he would have to immediately move out and find a new place to live when the wind blew. Don't worry about that. Luigi's eyes were powerless, and his grizzled hair drooped messily on his face. His back was hunched, and he coughed repeatedly with a handkerchief covering his mouth. Then, he continued, "I asked you to find someone to pull strings. How is the contact for the ship leaving Northern MO coming along?" "The ship has been contacted, but this subordinate is worried that when we reach the docks, we will encounter the Northern MO soldiers' investigation of our identities. At that time," cough, 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 a cold glint flashed through Luigi's eyes. "Whoever dares to stop us from boarding the ship will kill them first." That despicable Northern Prince Mo had been chasing after the people of Shuntian Prefecture all these years, looking as if he would not stop until he had killed them all. He was simply ruthless. Where's Su Fong? That old Ani probably couldn't bear to see Her Highness Zhang's corpse thrown into the wilderness and went to collect it. That's unnecessary. Cough, cough, cough. Luigi was so angry that his chest tightened and he coughed. "If she exposes our tracks here, I'll cripple this old hag." "My lord, please be at ease. This subordinate believes that Mammy Sue isn't that stupid." "Humph. If it weren't for that damned black cat disregarding my orders and running to Northern Prince Mo to throw away its life, how could it have ended up without a corpse?" Luigi cursed angrily. "Idiots. They're all idiots. I already said to bide my time and wait for the limelight to blow over. None of the 3 brothers are of any use. My lord, please be at ease. There are still more than 100 people following my lord, and escorting my lord onto the ship is absolutely no problem." Chio-san helped Luigi lie down. Unfortunately, in less than 3 seconds, an explosion reverberated throughout Pangin Town. Chapter 1047. With a stooped back, Luigi anxiously sat up and abruptly grabbed Chio-san's arm. "What's that sound?" "Sir, I'll go out and take a look." Chio-san hastily hid at the door in a flash. Through the thin window lattice, He could only see red flames soaring into the sky. He could vaguely make out many people running back and forth in the town. Their hoarse roars were mixed with the creaking sound of the flames roasting the wooden window lattice. The entire Peace Town seemed to have sunk into hell on earth. Bang! A heavy blow landed on the door. Chiosen hastily opened the door, only to see his subordinate covered in blood stumbling inside. He anxiously cried out intermittently, "Sir, sir, it's not good. Peace Town has many soldiers." Ugh! Swish! A feathered arrow directly pierced the back of his head, killing him on the spot. Chiosen flew up and kicked that person out of the door before hastily closing the door to the side room. Subsequently, he heard the sound of arrows hitting the door. "Sir, we've been surrounded." Chiosen turned to look at Lu Yizhi in alarm. Lu Yizhi, who was wearing a white inner garment, sat on the bed and coughed violently. He abruptly smashed the low cabinet at the head of the bed with his fist. Northern Mo's heir apparent. They'd gone too far. Intense hatred burst forth from his eyes, and he abruptly stood up while coughing violently. "Sir." Chiosen hastily reached out to support Lu Yizhi, his eyes filled with panic. "What do we do now, sir? It can't really be that old bitch Su Fong who exposed our whereabouts." Lu Yizhi raised his hand to stop Chiosen from continuing to nag. It was already useless to talk about this now. The top priority was to think of a way to leave this place as soon as possible. Boom! Balon City, which was close to Peace Town, was also jolted awake by this. Everyone pushed open their windows and looked at the distant horizon in fright, only to see a stretch of scarlet-red flames illuminating the horizon, burning furiously. City Lord Lin Yongyi's voice quickly rang out in the sky above Balon City. "All citizens need not be nervous. The city has already taken adequate safety measures. Even if some scattered corpse puppets are attracted here, they won't be able to break through our defenses." Only then did the commoners calm down and shrink back into their houses. However, they couldn't fall asleep no matter what. Lin Yongyi stood by the window and looked up in the direction of Peace Town. He shook his head slightly and muttered to himself. His Highness led 3,000 mystic cultivators and several tens of thousands of elite soldiers this time and surrounded the entire Peace Town overnight. This time, I'm afraid that the remnants of Shuntian Prefecture will find it hard to escape even if they grow wings. The fire in Peace Town burned for most of the night. The wobbling zombies that had been attracted by the fire and sound were swiftly dealt with by the mystic cultivators guarding the perimeter before they could approach Peace Town. Lu Yizhi and Chiosen each put on a pitch-black cloak and originally wanted to slip away from the back of the town. Unfortunately, the entire Ping in town was surrounded, and there was no way to escape. The two of them fought while waiting for an opportunity to break free. As they fought, they felt the surrounding atmosphere slowly calm down, and a burst of terror floated to Lu Yizhi's heart. It caused him to turn around in shock. A ray of light that resembled a snowy line emitted light in the dark night. With a slender, jet-black sword in hand, Raven Moon went straight for Lu Yizhi's neck. The fingers holding the sword were slender and powerful, and the blade emitted a black light. Chapter 1048. Lu Yizhi's outer robe was instantly torn apart by the sword chi. With a ripping sound, a thin white undergarment was revealed, fluttering loudly in the boundless night. Cough, cough, cough. Lu Yizhi's breathing was rather disorderly as he coughed several times, and his old eyes shot a venomous glint at the Crown Prince. "Northern Prince Mo, you're a good one. You dare to exterminate our Shuntian Prefecture's people. Aren't you afraid of bringing an undeserved calamity to your northern moi?" What answered him was Prince Mo's sword light, which abruptly struck his shoulder. However, Lu Yizhi was already on guard, and the tip of this sword only struck the defensive barrier. Yet this seemingly indifferent strike abruptly shattered the defensive barrier on Lu Yizhi's body. A trace of panic finally surfaced in Lu Yizhi's eyes as he dazedly stared at the defensive ring in his hand. Due to the damage from the sword chi, It fell to the ground with a clang like a piece of scrap metal. Prince Imo glanced at him with a sneer. Luigi, bring out your greatest fighting strength and courage to fight with this crown prince. Today, we won't rely on anyone else. Imo Yin raised his hand and gently swiped it, immediately withdrawing the Raven Moon sword into his conscience. When Luigi saw him looking down on him, he was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. Cough, cough. He coughed violently. Good, good, good. Let this old man personally experience Northernmost Crown Prince's brilliant moves. After saying that, a giant black dog abruptly crawled on the ground and was about to charge forward. Purple flames suddenly fell around that giant dog, building a high burning wall around it. With a whoosh, the fire rose with the wind and ignited its fur. Bastard! Seeing this, Luigi abruptly swung a tiger-headed walking stick at the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince raised his cold eyebrows and lightly leaped in front of Luigi. Instead of retreating, he advanced and slammed his elbow into Luigi's chest. Midway, he changed his move and reached out to lock Luigi's arm. With a tug, the Crown Prince tore off half of Luigi's white inner garment, revealing his dark, old back. Ha ha! Mocking laughter rang out from all around. Luigi's old face flushed red, and a trace of irritable fury flitted across his eyes. Just as Chio-san was about to move, he saw a blur in front of his eyes. An expressionless boy of about 14 or 15 years old suddenly blocked his path. The golden-red demon eyes flashed with a cold light. Chio-san was slightly shocked and subconsciously took a step back. Your Highness! Your Highness! At this moment, the soldiers who had formed a large circle around the area began to shout excitedly. If Chio-san wanted to retreat further, he would retreat into the defensive barrier set up by several mystic cultivators. He could only brace himself and face the young man who was trying to bully him. On the other side, Luigi was barely able to fend off a few blows. However, when the crutch in his hand blocked Imo Yin's punch head-on, it was directly smashed into two with a crack. Holding the two broken crutches, Luigi staggered back a few steps. With a whoosh, he struck out several mystic force palms and created a small passage in the circle of purple flames that had trapped his mystic beast. The giant black dog dashed out of that small passage with its tail between its legs and whimpered a few times while panting for breath. Before one person and one dog could meet, Imo Yin flashed and kicked the black dog's large head with a flying kick. Then, a cracking sound was heard. Luigi abruptly widened his eyes and roared sternly, "No!" Chapter 1049. He was completely unable to comprehend how a level 12 mystic beast like him could die from Prince Mo's kick just like that. How easy was it to kill him? Unable to react in time, Luigi spat out a mouthful of blood in a split second. The backlash from the death of a mystic beast to its master immediately caused him to fall limp to the ground, and his limbs twitched reflexively. In a flash, Imo Yin pressed forward and reached out her lustrous, jade-white fingers, abruptly grabbing the back of Luigi's collar. "I'm going to kill you!" Luigi roared madly with a trace of blood hanging from the corner of his mouth. He abruptly separated his old palms and ruthlessly smashed them toward the Crown Prince's chest. "You overestimate yourself," the Crown Prince murmured softly. A layer of spirit armor instantly climbed up his slender limbs until it rapidly wrapped around his entire body. The black spirit armor wrapped around his slender, jade bamboo-like body looked exceptionally beautiful. However, Luigi felt a chill in his heart, and he spat out another mouthful of blood in fright. Spirit armor. Full-body spirit armor. Who exactly was this person? Such terrifying talent was actually someone from the lower star domain. How was it possible? Possible? Even people from the middle 6 prefectures might not necessarily be able to comprehend full-body spirit armor. Furthermore, how could full-body spirit armor suddenly appear in this suppressed space-time of the lower star domain? Usually, great spiritual masters would generate partial shields or spirit armor to increase their own defense by a level. But now, this person in front of him actually produced full-body spirit armor. Luigi's palms struck the crown prince's body, which was wrapped in full-body spirit armor, and a crisp crack was heard. Luigi's arms were devoured by the rebound force of the spirit armor's protection, and his old arms instantly fractured. His chest also swelled from the rebound force, and he repeatedly spat out mouthfuls of blood. After spitting it out, he rapidly wilted and completely lost the ability to fight. Feeling that the mystic energy in his mystic meridians had already been exhausted, Luigi powerlessly drooped his head and panted heavily like a dead dog waiting to be slaughtered. Northern Prince Imo, Void Sword, devour the heavens and devour the sun. Fearless. When the many elite soldiers and guards in the surroundings saw that His Highness was so valiant and subdued a level 15 Mystic Cultivator in a few moves, they immediately cheered. Your Highness! Your Highness! Your Highness! The sound traveled to the nearby Balon City. The people of the entire Balon City, who hadn't dared to sleep to begin with, were completely roused awake by this sound. Prince Imo raised his hand and stopped the excited shouts. His cold voice filled the night sky. My brothers of the Northern Imo Kingdom, my loved ones, the people of the 6 prefectures humiliated my homeland, trampling on the soil of the Northern Imo Kingdom. You slaughtered my wife and children and killed my brothers. How shall we fight back? Kill, kill, kill. For Doimo, for His Highness the Crown Prince. Kill all these bitches. Kill, kill, kill. Seething roars continuously spread across this land and reverberated in the air for a long time, shocking everyone. Northern Prince Imo slightly exerted force on the back of Luigi's neck, and with a crisp crack, Luigi howled miserably, feeling that his neck was about to be crushed by this terrifying crown prince. He was about to die. Right at this moment, Chiosen also heard Luigi's wretched howls. His originally flustered heart was now filled with sorrow. Chapter 1050. He felt that he and Sir Lu might be buried in this rundown town today. He had a rather bad premonition. Amidst the sounds of kill, kill, kill that filled the air, Chiosen gritted his teeth and made a final struggle. He summoned a mystic beast with an abnormally ferocious appearance. Its eyes were wide open as it stared at the young man in front of it with a bloodthirsty expression. It crouched there and appeared to be enormous in size. It bared its ghastly fangs, and smelly water continuously dripped from its mouth. It looked extremely filthy and unbearable. When the numerous elite guards saw this ferocious beast, their breathing also tightened. Their eyes involuntarily looked towards this abnormally thin and frail young man. However, the young man was as calm as ever, as if he hadn't seen the ferocious beast. He snorted coldly and took a step forward with his left foot, drawing a semicircle on the ground. A fierce and cold tyrannical aura immediately charged towards the other side. That was the supreme aura of the ancient golden dragon. Even Shio-san, who was caught off guard, fell to the ground on his butt, not to mention the ferocious beast, which had originally looked very arrogant, hugged its head with its claws and whimpered as it shrunk its head. Chiosen felt that his hand that was holding the short sword was already covered in sticky cold sweat. This should be called fear. Get up, quickly get up. Chiosen forced himself to stand up and urged his mystic beast. However, the figure in front of him flashed, and the young man had already arrived in front of the ferocious beast. The ferocious beast simply couldn't summon any thoughts of resistance. It hugged its head and lay on the ground, devoutly waiting for death to descend. Chiosen madly ran towards the young man, ruthlessly smashing mystic energy in his hands over and over again. However, in the end, he only fell to the ground in a sorry state. He stared blankly as the young man expressionlessly killed his mystic beast like the god of death had descended. This was a ferocious beast that he had painstakingly found in the mystic beast forest. Now, it was killed effortlessly like tofu. Why was it like this? What kind of terrifying might was on that young man's body? This pair of unlucky master and servant lost their mystical beasts one after the other, and were thrown to the ground like trash. Their two heads fiercely collided together, and they panted in confusion. Seventh Yin retreated behind the crown prince with a cold expression. His pair of golden-red, bewitching eyes stared icily at Lu Yizhi and his servant, who were sitting on the ground with their hair disheveled. Our prefecture lord, won't let you off. Lu Yizhi's voice was hoarse as he growled in his final struggle. Really? Who are you trying to fool? Crown Prince Immerse scoffed. The passage between the 6 prefectures and the lower star system opens once every 10 years to welcome those who have comprehended the power of the 5 spirits and are about to break through to the spirit realm. Other than that, all of them came to the lower domain through secret tunnels or rare spatial rune arrays. There was one downside to this kind of special channel space rune array. It was not stable enough, and it was not recognized by the heavenly axiom. Furthermore, it could not be transported on a large scale. He could be killed by the heavenly Tao at any time. Unless he lowered his own cultivation and suppressed his realm. Otherwise, you won't be able to come over. Just like you useless dog. It doesn't feel good to be suppressed from the spirit realm to the mystic realm, right? Lu Yizhi angrily pounded the ground and roared. But you used spirit energy. It was just as he said. Chapter 1051. In the lower star domain, if the heavenly law captured the trajectory of spirit power, it would certainly mercilessly obliterate the heavenly law. Thus, how could this young crown prince disregard the heavenly law's punishment and use the power of fire spirit as he pleased? It could even form a full-body spirit armor. What did he rely on? A divine artifact. The crown prince must have some kind of camouflage on him. A divine artifact that could deceive the heavenly law. What kind of divine artifact was it that was so powerful that it could deceive the heavenly law? Or was it that the heavenly law was also biased? Lu Yizhi squirmed on the ground, and he couldn't stop spitting out blood. Just now, he had used all the strength in his body to strike the crown prince's palm at close range, but it was blocked by the spirit armor. All the mystic force had rebounded onto his body, and his internal organs had been overturned. At this moment, Lu Yizhi's entire body was in pain. Cough, cough, cough. As he coughed heavily, the blood at the corner of Lu Yizhi's mouth kept spreading. However, the crown prince looked at him with an indifferent expression. Suddenly, he opened his palm, and a suction force directly sucked Lu Yizhi into his hand. Cough, cough, cough. What do you want to do? The crown prince curled his lips disdainfully and coldly spat out 3 words. Search your soul. Lu Yizhi's pupils directly contracted countless times. Search his soul? No, that was impossible. How could the young northern prince Immerse possibly use this kind of method that the God realm experts of the upper 3 provinces would use? Searching one soul was definitely a method invented by God realm experts to quickly understand the enemy's entire life. Of course, it was also possible that the enemy's divine sense would backfire when using it. Thus, ordinary God realm experts used it cautiously and wouldn't use this kind of bloody method unless it was absolutely necessary. A person whose soul had been searched would naturally become an idiot who only had brute force and lost consciousness. No, you can't do that to me. Your Highness the Crown Prince, I am Shuntian Prefecture's 3rd manager. I am a mere servant who speaks nonsense and has no sense of shame. This Crown Prince is also somewhat curious. Will the Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord wantonly mobilize troops and provoke my northern moi for the sake of you old dogs? Crown Prince Immerse harumphed coldly, his tone icy and resolute. Kill however many come. Lu Yizhi felt a sudden pain in his head as a terrifying and tyrannical aura instantly penetrated his conscience. Like an invisible hand, it directly grabbed his head and wantonly searched through all his memories. The Crown Prince's lips were tightly pursed into a straight line. Following the interpretation of the memory fragments extracted from Lu Yizhi's soul remembrance, His eyes abruptly turned even colder. Lower star domain. Find this little girl. I must make sure that she doesn't have everything going her way. She must live like a piece of trash, struggling at death's door like a dog, forever unable to see the end and hope. We can't let her have the chance to go to the divine land. Once any talent appears, there's no need to wait for her to grow up miserably. Just kill her on the spot. Yes, Luigi accepts the order. Luigi screamed with his mouth agape. Like a fish out of water, he stiffly collapsed to the ground. Imogen swiped through the air and took out a brush and paper. She casually drew half of a jade pendant holding a string and carefully examined it. Seeing that it was exactly the same as in Luigi's memory, she put away the brush and paper and looked at Luigi as though she was looking at a dead man. Grabbing Luigi, she pressed down on his head and spat out spiritual energy. Chapter 1052. Far away in a foreign country, a middle-aged man in Shantian Prefecture was originally cultivating in seclusion in a secret room. Suddenly, he howled and spat out a mouthful of blood. He suddenly hugged his head and started rolling on the ground. When the two disciples standing guard outside the stone room heard the commotion, they hastily slapped the stone door and shouted in horror, "Prefecture Lord! Prefecture Lord, what's wrong? Prefecture Lord?" The middle-aged man spat out a mouthful of bloody foam with a pitch-black expression. The stone door was pushed open by the disciples with a crash, and two disciples ran over with shocked expressions to support the Shantian Prefecture Lord who had fallen to the side. "Prefecture Lord? Prefecture Lord! Quickly go get the spirit commandeering pill for this old man to consume." The Shantian Prefecture Lord forced himself to finish speaking in one breath before instantly falling into a severe coma. He didn't expect that he had extracted a wisp of Luigi's spiritual consciousness and stored it in his conscious to make it easier for him to control this person. Unexpectedly, someone actually followed the vine to the melon and used that wisp of Luigi's spiritual consciousness to backfire on him. How hateful! But at this moment, he was already completely powerless to think about what exactly happened to Luigi. His conscience had been torn apart by a valiant force, and heart-wrenching, bone-eroding pain spread throughout his body. It would be impossible for him to completely recover without at least half a year. The Shantian Prefecture Lord had sunk into an unconscious coma, and all the disciples hurried over with abnormally terrified expressions. "Your Highness!" Huifeng hastily reached out to support the swaying crown prince and looked at him worriedly. Soul-searching was heaven-defying in itself, and the user would suffer considerable pressure from heavenly law. Moreover, the crown prince had used his divine sense to heavily injure the other party's conscience this time, so he himself would also be slightly shaken. Prince Imo raised his hand slightly to stop Huifeng from speaking. "It's fine. Take some people to search their room and see if there are any other discoveries. If they could find the whereabouts of Ani Prefecture, Luotian Prefecture, and the others in passing, then they would eliminate them all at once." Yes. Huifeng immediately selected a group of people to search Luigi's room. Imogen's icy gaze landed on Chio-san. The latter quivered, and when he saw Luigi's miserable state, he no longer had any thoughts of resistance. He hastily knelt down and repeatedly kowtowed to beg for mercy. "Your Highness, spare my life, Your Highness. I was just following orders. Wu Yu's sword, which was emitting an ink-colored light, accurately pierced through Chio-san's forehead between his eyebrows. The Crown Prince's eyes were cold as he pulled out the Black Moon. A trace of blood slid down the tip of the sword, leaving no trace of blood on the sword. Chio-san's eyes were wide open as he fell to the ground. He couldn't believe that the Crown Prince had executed him without a word. The Crown Prince's cold gaze swept over Luigi, who was sitting at the side in a daze, and a chilly smile spread across his lips. "Luigi, when you accepted this mission and came to the lower star domain in high spirits, I'm afraid you didn't expect this. To think that there would be a day when he would become a puppet in the hands of others, losing his soul and consciousness. He would be a slave for the rest of his life, serving others for the rest of his life, and a cluster of flames directly swept Luigi up, roasting and refining his flesh and soul before throwing it into a small bronze cauldron that suddenly flew out. Boom! The lid of the cauldron was tightly shut, blocking out all sounds. A trace of coldness flitted across the crown prince's lips. After we obtain Shuntion Prefecture, you'll be next. Shuntion Prefecture's Prefecture Lord, Gung. Pung. Chung. Chapter 1053. The sky was beginning to brighten, and a faint glow from the morning sun shone on the windows of the small courtyard. Arbor, who had wrapped herself into a small cocoon, covered her head and curled up onto the blankets. She tossed and turned restlessly, and beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. The nightmare was like a giant beast that wantonly wanted to tear her apart and swallow her whole. She had been having all kinds of messy dreams the whole night. She suddenly opened her eyes, and she breathed a sigh of relief with her forehead covered in sweat. When she struggled to get up, she suddenly realized that her limbs seemed to be crippled, and she could not move them at all. How could this be? She moved her body in shock. Something was wrong. She could not feel her limbs at all. She lay there stiffly, and she stared at the canopy above her head, racking her brains to figure out what was going on. Suddenly, she heard light footsteps, and a pale and slender figure turned in front of her. His dark eyes contained a wisp of dark green light as he sized her up. The cold sweat on Xiao Mu's forehead trickled down with a whoosh. Why was Qin Xian here? Why was Qin Xian here? The second young master reached out to take the blue and white porcelain bowl from the maidservant and sat down beside her. He looked at her with a smile and said, "This young master's little slave girl has been hungry for the past few days. Have you thought it through?" Arbor calmed down in an instant. Dream on. She was dreaming. She had not escaped from the dream yet. In this life, she was no longer the little slave girl that he could knead and flatten over and over again. Why did the dream that she had not recalled for a long time appear so clearly in front of her eyes? She did not want to think about it. Why aren't you speaking? The young master Omega Kotoka's voice was obviously lower. After being raised by him for 2 years, she was very clear that this was the sign of the young master's anger. Clang! The sound of a porcelain spoon hitting a porcelain bowl suddenly rang out. This peerlessly handsome young master suddenly bent down, stretched out 2 fingers, and tightly pinched her thin and weak chin. "You're really quite stubborn, aren't you? You really think that I don't dare to kill you? Kill me then." Bang! The porcelain bowl was smashed to the ground by the young master and shattered into pieces. The green in his eyes deepened, and the words that came out of his mouth were cold and merciless. "You don't know what's good for you. I'll let you experience what it's like to die of hunger." He stood up and left with a flick of his sleeves. She could only see his cold and emotionless back disappearing from her sight. Arbor was dumbfounded. He felt a chill in his head. What was going on? Why was her mind so clear? Yet, it was as if she had been possessed in her previous life. The hoarse voice coming out of her mouth was different from her own. She was dreaming. She was dreaming. Don't panic. Don't panic. She must try her best to wake up. But why did she feel a little creepy and fearful? Could it be that he would never wake up? Would she have to go through the horrors of her previous life again? Arbor's little face scrunched up, and he shifted uneasily on the bed. Emolien. Emolien, where are you? Sob, 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 Emolien. Emolien, the black feral in his conscience, abruptly leaped out on its own. Under the faint sunlight, Emolien's slender, moon-white figure emerged, reaching out to grab the window. Right at this moment, the door to the side room was suddenly kicked open by someone. Sixth Zheng's slender figure appeared at the doorway. The sword in his hand pointed straight at the shadow in the corner of the room. "Who are you?" The flute player's hand paused slightly, and the bewitching sound of the flute disappeared. Chapter 1054. The corners of that person's mouth curled into a faint smile under the veil. Then, without even looking back, he flipped out of the window. "Don't run!" Sixth Zheng shouted angrily and chased after him. At this time, the door was pushed open again. Qin Susu stared blankly as Mo Yin's faint figure slowly faded away. The black feral returned to Arbor's conscious. At the same time, Arbor abruptly opened her eyes. She forcefully lifted the bedding on her body and sat up straight. Qin Susu's hand, which was holding a basin of water, paused slightly. Her gaze changed slightly as she scanned the room's surroundings. Who came? Arbor quickly got up and casually put on a robe. When she got up, her body swayed slightly. She suddenly felt her head ache from the nightmares of the night. She couldn't help but reach out to support her forehead. The people in the small courtyard were all startled awake by Sixth Zhang's shout. They hurriedly put on their clothes, got up, opened the door, and walked out of the room. All of them looked at each other, their faces slightly pale, and their eyes were filled with a hint of fear. What was going on? They actually slept so soundly last night and had nightmares all the way until dawn? It would be hard to believe that someone hadn't secretly tampered with them. Are you all right? Qin Susu hurriedly threw down the basin and hurried to Arbor's side. Crown Princess! Lightning's slightly anxious voice came from outside the window. I'm fine. Only after speaking did Arbor realize that her voice was a bit dry. She couldn't help but cough lightly twice. What a powerful nightmare demonic flute. It could actually trap her in the dreamland and almost prevent her from leaving. Arbor pressed her hands on her knees. She only felt waves of dizziness. She hastily ran to the copper basin and retched several times, but nothing came out. Miss Qiao. Qin Susu anxiously followed over. What's going on? Do Fengqi ran in noisily. Looking at Qin Susu, who had a normal expression, she suddenly pointed at her and asked loudly, Qin Susu, why are you fine? Why is everyone trapped by nightmares? Everyone's faces are pale, but you look completely fine. Did you do this? What nightmare? Qin Susu looked at Do Fengqi in front of her in astonishment and said, I don't know if it was because I was too excited or something last night, but I couldn't fall asleep. Fearing that I would disturb Miss Qiao's sleep, I snuck out of the courtyard. I went to the small forest near the entrance of the base to cultivate. I didn't come back until dawn. I don't know what you're talking about. Cut it out. Everyone was caught by the nightmare and had nightmares all night. Everyone is feeling terrible right now, and you're the only one who's fine. Who would believe that? I really don't know what you're talking about. Stop arguing. Arbor, who felt as if there was a big hammer pounding back and forth in his head, shouted coldly. The two of them stopped bickering and turned to look at her. It's not Susu. It's indeed not Miss Qin. Little Sixth Zheng walked in from the door and glanced worriedly at Arbor. That person was wearing a loose black robe. I couldn't make out their figure, and even their voice was androgynous. Then how can you prove that it wasn't Qin Susu's doing? Do Fengqi steeled her heart and refused to let go of Qin Susu. You're crazy, Qin Susu said irritably. If I knew that nightmare, I'd be the first to kill you, so that you wouldn't be like a shit stirrer all day long, pestering the team endlessly. Chapter 1055. Who are you calling a shit stirrer? Do Fengqi glared, her lungs about to explode from anger at Qin Susu. Don't be noisy, Arbor shouted angrily, only to feel her head hurt even more. Throw her out. Lightning flashed to Do Fengqi's side. Without another word, she grabbed her collar and directly threw her heavily outside the door. Do Fengqi wasn't that inexperienced to begin with. It was just that she had been startled awake by a nightmare last night. At this time, her entire body was somewhat exhausted, and she was caught off guard, so she only realized with a start after being thrown out by lightning. Bam! Arbor directly slammed the door shut in front of Do Fengqi. That way, this woman wouldn't be like a crow, constantly making noise by her ear. This flute sound can cause damage to a person's conscience. Fortunately, we didn't hear it for too long. No more than an hour, little Sixth Zheng said seriously. Sixth young master, you were the first to discover this flute sound? Qin Susu asked. Sixth Zheng nodded. At first, I was also affected by the nightmare, but then I used a method to break free. Only then did I realize that this flute sound was targeting our small courtyard, causing everyone to be affected by the nightmare. Even those hidden guards by the crown princess's side, who had yet to appear, had all been affected. As a result, he was burning with anxiety and immediately ran over to investigate Arbor's situation. Only then did he discover that the flute sound was coming from Miss Chiao's room. Little Six, Arbor rubbed her unbearably aching head and walked in front of Six Zheng without consulting anyone. Raise your hand. Sixth Zheng subconsciously wanted to hide his arm behind his back. However, when he met Miss Chiao's eyes that were fixated on him, he couldn't help but obediently take his arm out from behind his back. Under his rolled-up sleeve, there were 2 glaring cuts. The bloodstains were half-dried, and the wound was extremely deep. Are you a pig? You're actually so ruthless to yourself. Arbor rolled her eyes at him, saying that he used a method to break free. It was this stupid method of cutting his own arm to startle himself awake from the pain. Come here and apply medicine. Arbor irritably tugged at him. They're all superficial wounds. It's not a big hindrance. Under her glare, little Sixing lowered his voice and obediently walked to a stool on the side to sit down. Arbor quickly cleaned his wound and bandaged it. He frowned and said, I don't know who did this to us. I feel that it should be someone who came with us. People from other countries are more likely to make a move. Arbor was puzzled. If this person wanted to deal with her, why didn't he just kill her directly? What was the purpose of making her enter the incubus after such a long detour? Miss Chiao, we need to be extra careful on this trip. Arbor nodded and said, let's go, it's about time. After the 3 of them pushed open the door, Do Fengqi, Duan Siren, Hong Bai, and Fan Xiuming also finished their preparations. However, her gaze was somewhat complicated as she looked at Qin Susu. Presumably, Do Fengqi had already gossiped in front of them just now. Qin Susu shrugged nonchalantly. I don't mind if I'm alone, as long as you insist. Can everyone be a bit more united? Duan Siren said. Before this matter is clarified, no one should frame a good person, okay? Now that we have a strong enemy waiting for an opportunity to make a move, we should be even more united. Duan Siren continued. After all, that person peeked into our dreams and should be thinking of ways to make things difficult for us. Chapter 1056. Arbor felt all the hairs on her body stand on end. Peeping into her dream? Could it be that everything that appeared in her dream just now had been seen by someone? Soon after, a surge of anger welled up in her heart. Truly abominable fellow. When she thought about how she appeared like a blank sheet of paper in front of strangers' eyes, Arbor felt incomparably disgusted, as if she had eaten a fly. Holy Maiden, a young woman in the prime of her youth wearing a white veil, gracefully walked to the stream and bowed. They have set off. The demonic cult Holy Maiden, Sikong Fulling, seemed to have not heard the woman's words. She minded her own business and sat by the stream, swinging her snow-white legs and kicking the lush green water in amusement. Holy Maiden, do you want this subordinate to send someone to follow them? Sigh. Sikong Fulling lazily half-sprawled on a rock by the stream, one hand propping up her chin as she softly murmured, When I wake up later, I will naturally go find them. Yes, then this subordinate will take her leave first. Sikong Fulling swung her small leg and kicked the water again. Her slender legs slowly crossed as she reached behind a rock and took out a faint jade-green jade flute. Her small hand gently stroked it as she chuckled and muttered to herself, I actually can't see your dream. Arbor, oh Arbor, tell me, how should I torture you? Logically speaking, the Phoenix Nether Demonic Flute should be able to clearly see anyone's dream when they were captured by a nightmare. However, that savage little girl seemed to be an exception. Her nightmare realm was actually blurry and hazy, and she couldn't see anything clearly. A bit interesting, my Chow's section break. It's not too early for us to enter the forest this time. Everyone, tell us what you know. Otherwise, we will be delayed when we search for the secret realm. Wei Nanshu was the first to speak. Arbor had 7 people on this trip, including Wei Nanshu, Bailey Wu, and Xiaomi, and 14 others. If there were no accidents, there would be 21 people entering the secret realm. However, at this time, there were many Imperial guards following behind the princes and princesses of Northern Wei, Southern Bailey, and Easterning. A large group of people entered the forest. It could be considered as a group of 100 people. If it wasn't for the fact that they were courting death and insisted on charging into the mystical beast horde in the forest, there wouldn't be any major issues with their safety. Alshian beasts had a bit of intelligence. When they saw such a large group of people passing by, they naturally wouldn't provoke them if they were tactful. The entrance to the mystic beast forest's secret realm changes every 10 years, but the general area remains the same, Bailey Wu said. Yes, it should be in the center of the mystic beast forest. We have to cross it. 5 days should be enough. Xiaomi nodded in agreement. There are many ferocious beasts in the mystic beast forest. For the sake of everyone's safety, I suggest that we elect a captain. In these 5 days, they would listen to the captain until they safely entered the secret realm. What do you think? Wei Nanshu asked again. Your Highness, you're right. Jin Hongwan from the Jin family fort laughed heartily. This is also for everyone's safety. I'm sorry. I'm not used to putting my life in the hands of strangers. Upon hearing this, Arbor directly walked forward after saying this. Little Sixth Zheng and Qin Susu immediately followed. Hong Baoyi, Dou Fengqi, and the others hesitated for less than a second before following as well. Compared to staying with these other countrymen with ulterior motives, they instead felt that following this cold-faced crown princess seemed to be safer. Chapter 1057. Younger sister, let's go together. Without another word, Xiaomi pulled the royal bodyguard Gongsun Lai and ran out from the back of the group to join Arbor's group. Upon seeing this, Bailey Wu also hurriedly ran over and shouted at Xiaomi, Cousin, bring me along. Bailey Zhun turned to look sympathetically at Wei Nanshu, whose complexion had darkened, and shrugged. The little crown princess doesn't seem to like you too much. After saying this, she ignored Wei Nanshu's dark expression and followed her elder brother Bailey Wu. As a result, it seemed like they were divided into 2 groups. Arbor's group had 13 people. Wei Nanshu's group, on the other hand, only had 8 people. The 2 groups walked in tandem, not making any noise along the way. They were walking toward the center of the mystic beast forest. The deeper they went, the more likely they would encounter powerful mystic beasts at any time. Wei Nanshu didn't say anything afterward. In his small group, other than the 4 from Northern Wei, there were only 2 Aikido youths, the 2 crown princes of the Eastern Kingdom. They passed through the mystic beast forest's luxuriant foliage uneventfully. This place didn't see sunlight all year round, and the air was humid. The ground was covered in a thick layer of withered leaves, which felt soft when stepped on, making people faintly feel uneasy. Akira reached out to grab Ali's arm, worried that a snake would scuttle out from the leaves if they were caught off guard. After walking for a long time, Arbor suddenly stopped and turned to look at little Six Zheng and the others behind her in bewilderment. Why are you all following me? Little Six Zheng. He suddenly had a very bad premonition. As expected, the little crown princess's following words nearly angered them to death. I don't know the way, so why aren't you all walking in front of me to lead the way? Arbor frowned with an incredulous expression. Dou Fengqi was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. Xiaomi exclaimed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Younger sister, if you don't know the way, why are you leading the way? I just don't want to put my life in the hands of an unfamiliar captain. I didn't say I was leading the way. Arbor looked at them speechlessly. After walking for a long time, no one came out to lead the way, so she couldn't help but speak up. Duan's siren chuckled. It's okay. Anyway, I think there's only one path ahead. Let's keep going. As long as we're not mistaken, we'll be fine. Oh, Arbor nodded. I'll lead the way. Qin Susu walked out from the group and said, I come to the Mystic Beast Forest to train every year, so I'm quite familiar with this area. Dou Fengqi glanced at her suspiciously and held back her words. After Dou Fengqi's outburst, Duan Siren and the others were also quite suspicious of Qin Susu. However, they were able to keep their composure better than Dou Fengqi, so they didn't say anything and just nodded. Qiao Mu walked beside Qin Susu, shoulder to shoulder. There was no distinction between day and night in the Mystic Beast Forest, so they could only estimate the time. At this time, it was almost 10 o'clock in the night, and everyone's physical exertion was quite large. Qin Susu turned to ask Arbor, "Miss Qiao, let's stop here for today and rest here. How about it?" Arbor naturally agreed without any objections. Wei Nanshu and company, who were following behind their group, also stopped and started to set up simple and crude tents. Chapter 1058. Starting a fire might attract beasts, so everyone was chewing on dry rations for dinner. To avoid attracting attention, Arbor also ate dry pastries. After casually stuffing her little belly with 2 mouthfuls, she leaned against a tree and closed her eyes to rest. Last night's nightmare made her extremely uncomfortable, so it was also good to seize the time to make up for lost sleep. "You all go to sleep. I'll keep watch," little Sixth Zheng said to the others. "Thank you for your trouble, Sixth Young Master," Hong Bai said politely and didn't decline. He hurriedly found a slightly drier place to rest. In the middle of the night, Arbor abruptly opened her eyes. Little Sixth Zheng immediately sensed her movements and turned to look at her. "Were you awakened by a nightingale's cry?" Arbor shook her head. She took out the chubby little white squirrel from her bosom and stroked its warm fur. Just now, she seemed to have felt the little fella's hooves move. Could it be her misconception? Because everyone had things on their minds, they woke up one after another after resting for 4 to 6 hours. The forest was still gloomy, with only a few bits of sunlight sprinkling on the little crown princess's face through the layers of branches and leaves. She hugged a snow-white little pet and leaned against a tree. She held a bag in one hand and fed the little pet something with the other. Do Fengqi shot her a glance and was instantly stupefied. "Yu, what are you doing?" She only saw that jade-white little hand lift slightly, and a red crystal was stuffed into the little white pet's mouth. Heavens, what did she just see? A nouveau riche was feeding her pet a large amount of crystal cores. Arbor cast her a glance and continued to calmly feed her pet. Yesterday, Lightning and the others had secretly hunted many mystic beasts nearby. These crystal cores were extremely good supplements for the little white squirrel. Xiao Mu did not know when the little fellow would wake up, so she reached up to stroke its soft fur. Duan Siren walked over and asked, "Shall we set off?" "Let's set off." Qin Susu hadn't finished speaking when her expression suddenly changed. "Careful!" A small emerald green snake suddenly poked its head out from between the leaves. It spat out its tongue and bit Arbor's wrist. Arbor took out a silver needle from his fingertips. Just as he was about to stab the snake to death, he suddenly saw the fluffy white tail in his arms move. With a paw sound, it accurately pressed the snake under the tail. Arbor was slightly delighted. The little white squirrel is awake. She lowered her head and saw that the little fellow was still lying on her lap. Its eyes were closed and it was motionless. However, its tail seemed to have a mind of its own and swayed back and forth before it was retracted. When everyone looked down, they were all shocked. That seemingly soft tail had actually crushed the emerald green snake into a meat patty. Even the snake's gallbladder seemed to have been crushed into powder. The seemingly weak little pet by Miss Qiao's side was actually so extraordinary. Arbor was also a bit surprised. He stood up with the little fellow in his arms and nodded at Qin Susu. "Let's go." Do Fengqi's eyes flashed. She ran to Arbor's side and gave her a rare friendly smile. "Miss Qiao, did you buy this little pet from a beast pet store?" "No." Arbor shook her head. Do Fengqi asked with a grin, "I think this little pet is quite cute. I don't know if Miss Qiao is willing to part with it. I can buy it at a high price." "I'm short on money." Arbor turned around and looked at her with an extremely serious gaze. Do Fengqi was speechless. Chapter 1059. The dignified northern prince Mo's consort could lack anything but money. "Even if I gave it to you, you wouldn't be able to raise it." Arbor was expressionless as she pulled out her knife and stabbed her glass heart again. Couldn't afford to raise it. How precious was this? Everyone silently glanced at the little white squirrel. "I've already fed it over 8,000 crystal cores." Our dear Xiao Mu wouldn't stop until she shocked everyone to death. This time, Do Fengqi, who was following beside her, was completely stupefied. This little pet doesn't eat anything else but crystal cores. It also eats high-grade and above medicinal pills. It doesn't really like low-grade and mid-grade medicinal pills. Everyone silently shut their mouths and swept a disdainful glance at the little crown princess. Can't be bothered to talk to a nouveau riche like you. Once she spoke, she felt like her heart was being pricked. Do Fengqi also ceased nagging, and the group hurried toward the forest's central region at the fastest speed possible. The closer they got to the central region, the more ferocious beasts suddenly scuttled out to battle with their group. Everyone had the idea of ending the battle as soon as possible. They would kill as many of them as they could. Arbor didn't make a move and kept picking up scraps behind Lightning and the rest. She took out the crystal cores of the mystic beasts they killed one by one and placed them in her own small pouch. Do Fengqi's eyes reddened as she watched, and she couldn't help but grumble. Qin Susu then cast a glance at her and sarcastically said, "Who told you not to bring a faster Imperial Guard?" The group fought and stopped, and after killing several mystic beasts, Eastern Kingdom's crown prince accidentally knocked down a tree. Very quickly, a swarm of tiger-tail bees rapidly flapped their thin wings and burrowed out of the thicket. "Fuck, Crown Prince. You knocked down a tiger-tail bee tree." Everyone covered their heads and scurried away, not daring to stay a moment longer. Arbor hurriedly took out a piece of clothing from her inner world and wrapped her small head up, only revealing two large, blinking eyes. Little Six Zheng turned around with his sword in hand and glanced at the little lady's crafty speed. He couldn't help but laugh. Everyone was chased by the bee swarm the entire way. From time to time, they would turn around and send out mystic energy to disperse some of the densely packed bee swarm. "Run towards a water source. You bastards, do you even know how to lead the way? Watch out, watch out. Fuck, don't stab the back of my head." Arbor took out a medicine bottle from his pocket, poured out several medicinal pills, and stuffed them to little Six Zheng, Lightning, and the others. "Wasp's tail is poisonous. Ingjian, this time I'm going to die because of you. Miss Xiao, do you still have any antidote pills? Give me one, give me one." Bailey Wu anxiously flipped over and flew to Arbor's side, reaching out his hand to ask for the medicine. "Sister, I wrap my head up like this. I can't see anything." Xiaomi's head crashed into a tree as she cried out nervously. Everyone was speechless. "Are you joking? Can't you keep your eyes on the road?" Xiao Mu suddenly felt that she was leading a group of idiots on a secret expedition. "There's water in front, a water source. Quick, jump in. If we jump in, the swarm won't target us anymore." "Hey!" Arbor speechlessly watched as Bailey Wu, that idiot, took the antidote pill first, and then jumped into the pool ahead with a splash. The two royal guards followed suit and jumped in, exclaiming, "Your Highness." Wait! Arbor couldn't stop them in time, and the two had already jumped into the water. Soon after, everyone looked on helplessly as the two royal guards were swiftly sliced into pieces by the mirror-like water surface. Their blood mixed into the pool, making one's hair stand on end. The entrance to the mystic realm. Chapter 1060. At this time, Bailey Wu popped his head out of the water and looked in astonishment at the group of people with strange expressions on the shore. "Why are you making such a big fuss? Hurry up and come down. The swarm is coming." Everyone looked speechlessly at this careless fellow. He dared to be so rash in the mystic beast forest and recklessly jump into a pool of unknown depth. This Southern Bailey's fourth prince was truly a jokester. His luck seemed to be pretty good as well, for he found the right place with a casual jump. This place should be the entrance to the mystic beast forest secret realm that opened once every 10 years. "Lightning, this subordinate is here. Hurry and leave. Return to the base and wait for me," Arbor instructed. After Lightning and the rest received their orders, she turned around and dashed to the pool with little Six Zheng and the rest. The two looked at each other and directly jumped into the pool. Arbor was first stimulated by the ice-cold pool water, and then she felt a trace of warmth automatically wrap around her body. It instantly covered her limbs and bones, allowing her to stretch her body to her heart's content in the water. Could it be that after comprehending the power of the water spirit, she innately had an incomparable affinity with any type of water? Arbor felt that her limbs were very relaxed as she tossed and turned in the water. She could move however she wanted. It was too comfortable. After little sixth Zheng entered the water, he added a defensive barrier around himself. He couldn't help but be startled when he looked at the lady beside him. Miss Qiao was like a fish back in water. Her entire body seemed to have merged into one with the pool. Her breathing was very soft and slow, almost disappearing. She could shuttle back and forth in the water to her heart's content without adding a defensive barrier. That appearance was too beautiful. Arbor was the first to sink into the pool. The group of people following behind her all kept their mouths tightly shut. They occasionally opened their eyes and looked at her with incredulous gazes. Miss Qiao was like a fish in the water. The heavy water pressure seemed to be completely unguarded against her and allowed her to toss and turn as she wished. Her legs seemed to have transformed into a fishtail as they swayed gently. Even she herself found it very strange that she could open her bright eyes without any difficulty in the water. It turned out that after fusing with the water spirit, he could enter and leave the water like a fish without any effort. This was too good. A group of colorful little fishes swam over and circled around her. They swayed their tails for a while and swam around her for a long time before dispersing one after another in jubilation. Following behind them, little Six Zheng and the others were dumbstruck. If Do Fengqi could open her mouth to speak, she would definitely not be able to hold back her urge to grab Arbor and ask him how to attract the fish. The aquatic plants in this pool were all perfect, without any signs of mutation. As they walked through the mystic beast forest, they more or less encountered a few mutated plants. Compared to other places, the rate of mutation in the mystic beast forest was considered very slow. However, this pond did not change in the slightest. The water was extremely clear. If such a water source was destroyed by the organization behind it, even Arbor would feel heartache. It would be great if he could take it into Paradise Planet, Arbor thought whimsically. A circle of light suddenly appeared in front of him. It was obvious that they had reached the bottom. The entrance to the secret realm was here. Arbor swung her legs and swam toward that circle of light. Chapter 1061. Behind her, Do Fengqi and the others watched anxiously. If the crown princess was the first to enter, wouldn't she gain all the benefits for nothing? They watched as that nimble little figure slid into the white halo all of a sudden. Do Fengqi, Ying Jian, and the others anxiously kicked at the water beneath their feet. However, although they had activated their defensive barriers to block the water, the deeper they went, the greater the water pressure, and their sliding speed became very slow. At this time, everyone felt that their defensive barriers were about to burst. Little Sixth Zheng and Bailey Wu were the first to reach the halo. Their hearts relaxed slightly, and they slid toward the light. Once they entered the light, a feeling of weightlessness instantly came from beneath their feet. Their entire bodies were pulled down by gravity, and they plummeted downwards with a whoosh. Little Sixth Zheng and Bailey Wu were alarmed at the same time, and they circulated mystic energy to protect their bodies, doing their utmost to stabilize their falling speed. Bam! Bailey Wu propped himself on the ground with a fist, and his half-squatted figure slightly relaxed. Little Sixth Zheng's situation was slightly better than his. It was just that when he landed, his body swayed left and right a few times before he steadied himself. Looking up, they saw an inverted gourd valley's entrance, and the lush greenery couldn't be concealed from their eyes. They saw a giant gray ape sitting at the entrance like a small hill, blocking that gourd valley's entrance. Ding-ling, dang-lang. The fine sound of a bell was accompanied by light footsteps. Sikong Fulling's slender figure appeared beside that pool, and she looked around with a grin. The entrance is here. Yes, Holy Maiden. A masked woman slightly cupped her hands and bowed to her. Does Holy Maiden want to go in now? I hate water the most. It makes my clothes wet every time. Sikong Fulling faintly complained. Her figure swayed slightly, and she entered the water. At this time, Do Fengqi, Qin Su Su, Hong Bai, Ing Jian, Wei Nan Shu, and the others also stepped into the halo and entered this secluded valley overflowing with lush greenery. Naturally, they also saw the giant gray ape blocking the entrance of the valley. Do Fengqi almost immediately shifted her gaze to Arbor. Logically speaking, the crown princess was the first to enter the valley, but what was she doing? She was sitting leisurely on a big rock, gnawing on a corn cob in her hand that half of the corn on the cob was already eaten. It was obvious that they had already started eating before they arrived. Bailey Zhen blinked and covered her mouth as she giggled. "Miss Chow, why aren't you thinking of a way to go in? Instead, you're eating nonstop here?" Arbor glanced at her nonchalantly. "I'm a little hungry." It was true. Just now, he had passed through the pool without any hindrance. As soon as he entered this mystic realm, he felt so hungry that his stomach was growling. Perhaps it was due to the fact that he had to expend a lot of water spirit energy to assimilate into the water, but unknowingly, he had expended a little too much of it. This was only her own conjecture, so she couldn't be sure. She didn't know the exact reason. Since he was hungry, he would just eat. After finishing the corn on the cob, Arbor took out a banana from her inner world. She had just peeled off a bit of skin when she heard rustling sounds coming from the front. That giant ape actually moved its butt to the side, revealing a small path that only one person could pass through. Arbor's small hand that was peeling the banana paused in midair just like that, and he looked at that giant ape in astonishment. Chapter 1062. They saw that little crown princess holding a banana in one hand as she scampered in front of the giant ape. She suddenly stuffed the banana into the crook of the giant ape's arm that was dangling on the ground, and her figure flashed into the valley like a wisp of smoke. Everyone was stupefied and instantly felt disheveled. Fuck! A single banana was the entry pass? This was too outlandish. Do Fengqi wanted to keep up with Arbor's pace, so she hurriedly ran over as well. It was just that the giant ape had already blocked the passage that was only wide enough for one person. The giant ape's small black eyes stared vigilantly at Do Fengqi in front of it, as if saying, "If you dare to take one step closer, I'll immediately tear you apart." The eyes of the two Aikido youths lit up slightly, and they hurriedly walked forward. Each of them took out a banana from their inner worlds. This was a personal item that they had hidden for a very long time. Ever since this world mutated, ordinary fruits like bananas were practically hard to come by. However, it was still quite worth it to use a banana to exchange for a secret realm entry pass. This pair of youths took out bananas and happily handed them over, fully thinking that the giant ape would definitely happily make way for them. Unexpectedly, woo-woo roar roar, this giant ape was actually very angry, and it slapped away the two bananas in front of it. Its two gray, furry arms forcefully pounded the ground, instantly sending sand and pebbles flying. Despicable human disciple, you actually dared to use a banana to swindle this ape. Everyone looked at it dumbfoundedly. The corner of little Sixth Zheng's mouth couldn't help but twitch. This difference was too big. The crown princess could pass through this valley entrance with a single banana, but if it was someone else, the giant ape actually disdained them. Little Sixth Zheng walked forward and bowed to this giant ape senior. Then, he took out 2 mid-grade spirit stones from his inner world. These were spirit stones that he had obtained by chance during one of his experiential training. Although they weren't very good, they were the most precious items he currently had. The giant ape swept a glance over them, and then reluctantly extended its long arms to sweep up the 2 spirit stones. It then opened up a path to the side for little Sixth Zheng to pass through. Seeing this, everyone took out all kinds of treasures from their inner worlds and handed them to the giant ape sincerely. The giant ape accepted some and rejected some. When it came to Do Fengqi, she handed over a high-grade pill. In the end, the giant ape didn't even look at it. With a slap, it sent the pill flying. Do Fengqi cried out in alarm and ran to pick up her pills. After she finished picking them up, her teammates had all entered the valley, leaving her alone outside and not allowed to enter. She couldn't help but become anxious and shrieked, "What the hell do you want? She wanted to rush into the valley. However, the huge ape was not courteous at all and directly slapped down with its palm. If Do Fengqi had not rolled on the ground and dodged in time, her head would have been the result of the shattered rocks. Do Fengqi's face was ashen as she glared at the giant ape in front of her. She was so anxious that she was about to cry. Everyone had gone in, except for her, who was stuck outside. Wasn't this a joke? She had painstakingly passed through the mystic beast forest and finally found the forest secret realm, but she was blocked outside the door. She could only stare at the rich mystic energy inside. Am I late? A crisp laugh made Do Fengqi turn her head to look. She saw the demonic cult's holy maiden slowly walking toward her with a faint smile on her lips. At this time, Arbor had already run into the valley with the little white squirrel in his arms. Chapter 1063. As for the others, when they entered this place, they immediately felt the dense, profound energy that flowed endlessly towards them. All the young faces revealed excited smiles. Heavens! The mystic energy here was so dense. If they cultivated here for a month, it would be equivalent to cultivating outside for a year. Wei Nanshu took a stroll around the valley with his men, his brows slightly furrowed. "Brother Nanshu," Jin Hongwan softly called out, "we've already smoothly entered. Why do you still look unhappy?" Wei Nanshu was displeased when he thought of the heavy loss they had suffered when they entered the valley. The difference between the giant ape's attitude towards them and towards Prince Mo's consort was too big. Anyone could see it. This little crown princess was too strange. She was the only one who used a banana to exchange for an entrance ticket. As for the others, they were just like them, using the most valuable items on their bodies to exchange for admission tickets. For example, he used a short blade spirit weapon to exchange for an entrance ticket. Roar, 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 roar. The giant ape's roar filled the valley, as if it was angrily roaring. Immediately after, a graceful figure wrapped in a thin red robe chuckled and glided through the air. "Senior giant ape, I've already paid the entrance fee. Please let me pass." Wei Nanshu looked up and a faint trace of amazement flashed through his eyes. It was the incomparably gorgeous demonic sect Saintess. Back then at the entrance of base, he only caught a glimpse of her. This woman's blurred and deep eyes were like thorns that fiercely pierced into the depths of his heart. She was truly a graceful stunner. TSK, TSK. Wei Nanshu clenched his fists and slightly lowered his head. He was very clear about the most important mission of this trip. As a restrained and aloof prince, he naturally wouldn't make such a low-level mistake. "Brother Nanshu?" Jin Hongwan suspiciously glanced at him. "It's nothing. Let's walk around the valley again." Actually, this valley wasn't big. Wei Nanshu had already walked around earlier. The valley's entrance was slender, and the valley's interior was wide like a gourd. The valley was shrouded in mystic energy all year round and was covered in white mist. There were craggy rocks and fragrant grass everywhere. In the distance, there was a crude stone pavilion, and there was nothing inside. Other than that, there was only a small house buried in the depths of the sea of flowers. However, once they got close, they would be pushed far away by a powerful force. They could only watch from afar and could not get close at all. This small house was the ultimate goal of his trip. Wei Nanshu's breathing tightened as he clenched his fists. If I'm not mistaken, there must be that thing in the house, the 10,000-year Xuanji core. Bang, bang, bang. The heavy footsteps of the giant ape approached from afar. After everyone gathered in the valley, they couldn't help but look at each other. They saw that Do Fengqi's clothes were torn and her hairpins were scattered. She cut a very sorry figure. When the giant ape swept its gaze over Do Fengqi with contempt, it was filled with ridicule. This giant ape was too human-like. Everyone muttered in their hearts. They did not know what Do Fengqi had handed over to make this giant ape senior look down on her. The giant ape didn't pay any attention to them. Instead, it carried a thick and heavy stone tablet as it walked over. The sound it made was earth-shattering. Boom! A huge stone tablet was placed on the ground by the giant ape's long arms. Everyone hastily gathered around to take a look. They saw a line of eye-catching small words carved on the stone tablet. Chapter 1064. If the juniors who entered this mystic realm could raise their cultivation by 1 level within 10 days, they would be the first to enter the small hut, meet esteemed Xuanji, and choose a peerless secret treasure. Everyone's eyes lit up when they saw this, especially Wei Nanshu. Even his breathing started to tighten. This was a rare opportunity. No, it should be said that this was their only chance to approach the small hut. They reckoned that even if Senior Xuanji's 10,000-year-old Xuanji core did not exist, there would still be other treasures in the small hut. While everyone was excited, the giant ape's gray, fluffy arm knocked on the stone tablet again. Everyone looked down and realized that there were a few rows of small words carved at the bottom of the stone tablet. They were too excited previously and did not see those small words at all. They saw the words carved on the tablet. This mystic realm will separate you and send you into a sealed training space. Mystic beast phantoms will be automatically generated according to your cultivation. Once you are killed by the mystic beast phantoms in battle, your original body will die. Remember this. Once the training begins, you cannot leave the sealed space before the time limit is up. Those who wish to participate in the training can press their fingerprints on the stone tablet, which will immediately activate and enter the numbering and scoring mode. Those who do not participate in the training will be forcibly transported out at the end of the 5-day period. In addition, those who are still unable to break through their current cultivation realm within 20 days will be forcibly terminated and transported out of the mystic realm. Those who enter my Mystic Beast Forest mystic realm and participate in the training will be regarded as outer sect disciples of my Xuanji school. Those who can persist in the mystic realm for 15 days will be rewarded with a Xuanji pill that increases cultivation and expands mystic consciousness. Work hard, work hard, work harder. This seat will wait for you in the small hut. Spirit artifacts and secret treasures are all available. What are you waiting for? Everyone looked at each other, speechless for a while. Why did they feel that this was so unreliable? This Senior Xuanji's last few sentences seemed to be a slogan that Sikong fully giggled. He. Heavens, this Senior Xuanji is actually such an interesting person. This is too surprising. The Xuanji school seems to have perished 300 years ago. Then may I ask what benefits there were to becoming an outer sect disciple of the Xuanji school? You don't admit that you are ignorant and inexperienced. The pills that Senior Xuanji can produce must be extraordinary. That's a mighty senior from 100 years ago. Bailey Wu was the first to run forward. He pressed his large palm on the stone tablet and said, "I'm the first to sign up for the training." As soon as he finished speaking, a white light fell on his body. After the number 1 was quickly generated, Bailey Wu immediately disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. "Your Highness!" The 2 Southern Baileys couldn't help but exclaim. "Haha, fourth brother has really made our Southern Bailey proud. His courage was commendable. This princess will also give you a thumbprint." Bai Lijun rolled her eyes and smiled slyly. She placed her small hand on the stone tablet, and in the next second, she was sent away. The remaining 2 youths from Southern Bailey also hurriedly pressed down their handprints, but they forgot that they could not follow the footsteps of His Highness and the princess. Instead, they were directly isolated in a sealed training space. When Xiao Mu returned with the little white squirrel in her arms, she realized that there was no one left in the valley. Where did the crowd go? Arbor wasn't in a hurry either. In any case, the mountain valley scenery was rather beautiful, and the profound energy aura was dense, so he could cultivate wherever he Saturday. Chapter 1065. After strolling for so long, she was also hungry, so she found a small mound to sit down. She took out a bowl of rice and 2 side dishes, a combination of meat and vegetables, as well as a bowl of soup from the food box. After eating her fill, she hugged her little white squirrel and slept. She slept for a good several hours. After waking up, she immediately felt refreshed. She raised her hand to stretch, but when she turned her small face, her small hand suddenly froze in midair. Wasn't this the Eastern Kingdom's crown prince, Jian? Why was he standing behind her so sneakily? Arbor took a closer look and couldn't help but be amused. As it turned out, Jian was dealing with several roaring mystic beasts in a flurry. The mystic beasts were pouncing after him, but the strange thing was that no matter how Jian ran, he couldn't seem to run out of a certain range. He kept running back and forth in the same field, anxiously running for his life. All of a sudden, he was pinned down by a mystic beast. Oh, that mystic beast bit his arm, and Jian was in so much pain that his complexion turned pale. He rolled twice on the ground, broke free from the beast's mouth, and crawled up to start running again. Arbor took out a fresh and juicy apple, nibbling on it while admiring it. After watching for a while, she felt somewhat bored. This Jian was so timid and effeminate when fighting, prioritizing defense. He didn't look like a brave man at all. Arbor turned and left. Not long after, she saw little Six Zheng at a stream bank, who was similarly fighting several giant mystic beasts. But little Six Zheng was much more refreshed when killing them. The long sword in his hand fluttered like a butterfly flitting through flowers, and he disposed of the mystic beasts in a few moves. However, after he dealt with those mystical beasts, the mystical beasts turned into white mist, and in the next instant, they condensed into one after another. They were ferocious beasts that were one level higher than the ones before, and with a roar, they pounced over. Little Sixth Zheng's gaze focused, and he covered his sword with mystic energy. White light flashed, and he stabbed at the mystic beast's necks. Arbor stared blankly from the outside, even forgetting to chew on her apple. When she saw little Six Zheng finish off those mystic beasts again, the white mist dispersed and slowly condensed into a large winged beast. When it pounced into the air and let out a fierce roar, she instantly understood. Jian, little Six, and the others were all isolated in an independent space that was filled with profound energy. They were fighting and cultivating with profound beasts. These Xian beasts were probably condensed from the dense Xian energy in the mystic realm. So as long as they were not released from the mystic realm, the Xian beasts would be endless. Arbor couldn't help but be speechless. What a savage cultivation method. She did not know how long she would be imprisoned in there. If her profound energy was exhausted, what should she do? No wonder he didn't see Xiaolu and the others before. It turned out that they were busy cultivating. The strange thing was that her eyes could actually see everyone in the sealed space. Along the way, he stopped and watched everyone's training. When he saw Do Fengqi, that girl, shrieking in terror and despair, pounding on the realm wall that couldn't be seen clearly with the naked eye in an attempt to escape from the savage, independent space, Arbor couldn't help but stop and admire it. Thump, 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 until a series of heavy footsteps sounded beside her. Arbor turned around to look, and the corner of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. This giant ape was actually looking at her with a resentful expression, as though she was very naughty and mischievous. Roar, roar, roar. The giant ape roared at her a few times, as though it was reprimanding a disobedient child. Its long, hairy gray arm abruptly reached over and picked her up. What did it want to do? Arbor instantly had a bad premonition. Chapter 1066. After a round of dizziness, Arbor immediately felt that the surrounding mystic energy had become much more concentrated. Damn, she had been directly thrown into a sealed training space by Senior Giant Ape, who hated Iron for not living up to its expectations and was forced to undergo training. Narrowing her eyes, Arbor vigilantly reached out to summon the feral in her consciousness. In the next moment, the floating mystic energy around her quickly condensed and suddenly turned into a giant snake covered in steel thorns, opening its mouth to bite her. Wow, it was such a huge snake that it almost filled up the entire sealed space. As it moved, the row of steel thorns on its body was almost about to pierce her small body. What a large, ugly snake. It slithered on the ground, its skin rolling, making Xiao Mu feel nauseous. Raising her hand, a line of fire flew out from the ferrule, instantly attacking the snake's back. Only a light chi sound was heard, but only burned off a dozen of its steel thorns, even charring a lump of coarse snake skin. Level 12 Mystic Beast, or maybe level 13. It was clearly condensed from mystic energy, but it was like a substantial snake. Arbor took a deep breath, ignoring the aura-concealing talisman on her body. This sealed space gave her a mystic beast of the same cultivation level. Arbor slightly raised her hand, and a circle of lustrous and floating ebony talismans instantly suspended in the air, quietly revolving around her body. Activate the Mystic Energy Guiding Talisman Array. Within 2 hours, the mystic energy between heaven and earth would be endlessly absorbed into one's body to replenish one's rapidly depleted mystic energy. This was a talisman array made up of 60 high-grade, blue mystic energy guiding talismans, and its power was different from the previous mid-grade talisman arrays. Not only could the duration of the mystic energy of heaven and earth be doubled, the speed of the mystic energy was also imperceptibly changed. As soon as the talisman array was activated, all the mystic energy hibernating in the entire secret realm, one after another, vibrated, and then simultaneously rushed towards Arbor's side as fast as lightning. Standing outside the sealed space and watching, the giant ape's 2 small black beady eyes suddenly lit up, and it suddenly clapped its pair of furry palms, seemingly very happy. This little guy was too smart, instantly comprehending the principle of the endless mystic beasts fighting in this sealed space. The profound beasts in the sealed space were all condensed from the profound energy in this place. In other words, the more and faster the 21 of them absorbed the profound energy in this place, the thinner the profound energy stored in the mystic realm would become. As a result, the speed at which the profound beasts were condensed would only become slower and slower as the profound energy in the secret realm flowed away, until, if the profound energy here was completely absorbed, then the sealed space would naturally be unlocked, and there would be no need to wait for 10 days. An unending stream of mystic energy gathered above Xiao Mu's head, forming a nebula vortex. The concentrated mystic energy formed a sphere that forcefully enveloped the sealed space Xiao Mu was in. At the same time, Arbor summoned his startled swan dagger. Their minds were connected. The startled swan dagger swiftly flew to the snake's vital point and stabbed through it in midair. The giant snake immediately turned into a white mist and gradually dissipated. Following closely, waves of dense, profound energy rolled around Arbor's side and gradually revealed a sinister snake head. Arbor closed her eyes and sat down, concealing her spirit and mind, sinking her energy into her dantian. Her consciousness and the startled swan dagger merged into one. The startled swan dagger was her, and she was the startled swan dagger. With an unstoppable force, she rapidly harvested the lifeblood of the profound beasts in the sealed space. On the stone tablet, her results were constantly breaking the records of everyone else. Chapter 1067. Arbor's ranking was originally 0 because while the others were working hard to kill profound beasts in the sealed space, she was still strolling around outside. In actual fact, there was a gap between her points and the others. But now, her points were rising at a crazy speed. If Do Fengxi and the rest were here and saw such a shocking record, they would definitely be shocked speechless. The startled swan dagger was a spirit weapon with extremely strong destructive power. When Arbor was controlling it, she didn't need any fancy moves or profound skills. From start to end, there was only one move, a straightforward killing move. The profound beasts that appeared in the sealed space were all slaughtered by the startled swan dagger. As time passed, Arbor was fighting while absorbing the profound energy in the mystic realm. With her as the center, the speed of profound beasts condensing had indeed slowed down. Arbor's consciousness wantonly controlled this startled swan dagger, becoming more and more proficient as her mind and heart were connected. 2 days and 1 night later, Do Fengxi was awoken by the piercing pain in her arm as she blankly opened her eyes. Suddenly, she saw a ferocious, profound beast tearing at her arm with its big mouth. That wave of pain was as though it was heart-piercing and bone-eroding, causing her to quiver and her mind to clear up a little. Earlier, she was too tired. After 2 to 3 days of continuous fighting, her limbs were so sore that she couldn't even lift them up. So much so that in the process of fighting with the profound beast, she actually fainted. Luckily, the profound beast didn't bite her head, otherwise she would have long been dead. Actually, Do Fengxi and the rest could feel that the speed of profound beasts condensing in the sealed space had obviously slowed down by a lot. Previously, after killing a batch of profound beasts, another batch would condense within minutes, and there wasn't even time to take medicine. But now it was different. Do Fengxi propped herself up with difficulty and chopped off this virtual profound beast's head. Seeing the profound beast in front of her turn into a white mist and disappear without forming a new profound beast, Do Fengxi's tensed heart gradually relaxed as she heaved a sigh of relief. She hurriedly took out the few remaining medicinal pills from her inner world and consumed one. This kind of medicinal pill was a low-grade, profound, recovering pill that she bought from the pill house. Its effect was very ordinary, but the price was extremely expensive. After eating it, she could only recover 10% of her profound energy in a short period of time. She was still lying on the ground like a dead dog, panting slightly. Do Fengxi even felt that 10 years had passed in the sealed space. If she could, she really didn't want to move a single finger right now. However, in reality, it had only been 3 days. Furthermore, other than the first day, when the Xian beast surged forward at an extremely fast speed, from the second day onwards, they would at least have some time to rest after killing a batch of Xian beasts. Little Six Zheng also discovered that his condition had clearly improved a lot. After he finished killing this batch of mystic beasts, he panted heavily, and the long sword in his hand drooped slightly. He focused his mind and seized the time to adjust the mystic energy in his body to recover. According to his estimation, only 3 days had passed. Next, they would have to stay in the sealed space for about 7 days before they could leave. He was very tired, but he couldn't slack off. The crown prince of the Eastern Kingdom lay on his back on the ground, panting heavily. His eyes were wide open as he stared at the clear blue sky. He didn't expect that the sky in this mystic realm would be so blue, but now he felt like he was in hell. If he could choose again, he would rather die than go to this hell. Chapter 1068. Jade Color Parlor. The most famous brothel on Guanlan City's East Street usually entertained high officials, nobles, and wealthy merchants. No matter how difficult the world was, there were plenty of wealthy people who would throw away a fortune for Jade Color Parlor's top hostess, Miss Ran. At this time, in a private room on the 3rd floor, people were toasting each other. Cult Master, come, come, come. Let this humble one toast you first. The person who raised the cup had hazy, drunken eyes, and he seemed a bit groggy. This person was in his 40s and had the typical round, earthy appearance. He had a pair of especially small eyes, and if one didn't look carefully, they probably wouldn't be able to find those 2 slits. The man he addressed as Cult Master was merely in his early 20s. Dressed in a gorgeous purple robe, he rested his chin on one hand and leaned against the wooden armchair. His eyes narrowed as he smiled faintly, exuding a seductive aura. That's right, seductive. He was a man with feminine features and bright eyes. Those eyes were very seductive, as if they were born with a trace of affection, causing one's heart to thump like a little deer. Regardless of gender, old or young, he was captivating. It could be said that this cult master's appearance was several times more exquisite and outstanding than all the women present. It also caused the hearts of all the ladies to sway wildly, and their gazes were very hazy. It was truly a case of intoxicating oneself rather than wine, and bewitching oneself rather than lust. Today, this humble one is fortunate enough to invite Cult Master. It is truly this humble one's honor. Zheng Chao piled a smile on his face and bowed to that man. He turned to look at second manager Qi, who was a bit drunk, and shouted, "Idiot Qi, why aren't you refilling Lord Cultmaster's wine? Why are you the only one drinking?" "Ah, yes. Second manager Qi hurriedly stood up with a face full of smiles, and his small eyes narrowed even further. The young man addressed as Cult Master casually raised his cup and drained it in one gulp, pushing aside the female attendants on both sides. Lord Cult Master seemed to be somewhat impatient with these women who were eagerly sticking to him. Zheng Chao chuckled. It seems that Cult Master is dissatisfied with these vulgar women. That's right. How could Cult Master take fancy to these sluts who have been toyed with countless times? Clap, clap. Zheng Chao clapped his hands lightly. Not long after the applause ended, a middle-aged procuress wearing brightly colored makeup, Sun Yang, walked in, twisting her slender waist, and bowed with a smile. "Honorable guests, what can I do for you? Go, find a few more decent goods. Remember, they must be clean. Our sect master hates those dirty things the most." Yes. The cult master sat there with a faint smile on his face. He narrowed his eyes and glanced at the fat officials in front of him. At this time, after 3 rounds of wine, these old fogies no longer cared about etiquette. Each of them held a beautiful woman and kept touching her up and down. His fingertips tapped lightly under the table, as if he was already used to this kind of banquet that was filled with the smell of corruption. In fact, if State Uncle Zheng hadn't informed him of a big deal today, he wouldn't have come to discuss it in person. Although it was quite boring, he couldn't help but feel slightly excited at the thought of that big deal. Oh, it wasn't State Uncle Zheng, but the former State Uncle Zheng. The cult master curled his lips mockingly. It was true that even a broken boat had a 3-inch nail. Although this former State Uncle Zheng's property had been confiscated, it could be seen that he was still hiding some personal goods from the rewards he provided. This is the former Minister of Works. Chapter 1069. The cult master curled his lips in an indescribably flirtatious smile. "I already know your identities. Let's get straight to the point. Weren't these old fellows just a motley crew who had suffered under the Crown Prince's hands and had been pulled down one after another? To put it bluntly, the cult master actually didn't really want to pay attention to them. He only came here for the sake of the few treasures he received. Moreover, he really wanted to meet that man again. As if thinking of something, he subconsciously raised his hand to support his chin, and a dark glint flashed through his eyes. Cough, cough. State Uncle Zheng naturally wouldn't be so foolish as to directly discuss that big deal with the cult master in front of these pretty girls. Instead, he took out a letter and pushed it in front of the cult master. "Cult master, you'll know once you see the letter. Today, we'll only talk about the wind and moon. Don't talk about anything else." State Uncle Zheng laughed heartily after he finished speaking, but a sinister glint flashed through his eyes. Their Zheng family had been forced to such a state by Prince Mo. If they didn't wait for an opportunity to counterattack, then they really wouldn't have a chance to make a comeback. The cult master smiled faintly, and a trace of coldness flashed through his black eyes. He nodded and said, "Fine, then let's just talk about the wind and moon." Ha ha ha. Cult master is truly a wonderful person. Zheng Chao guffawed. Behind him, the group of fat former officials were also somewhat muddle-headed from eating and drinking. Each of them hugged the girls in their arms and laughed loudly. The former Minister of Works stammered, I was also the Minister of Works back then. If it weren't for that, that person wanted to cover the sky with one hand and pull his own people up the ranks. This official wouldn't have ended up like this. I was sent to Taichung Temple to be a small temple's deputy. Burp. Ha ha ha. Lord Huang, you drank too much. I didn't drink too much. The former Minister of Works, Lord Huang, angrily flung his sleeves and stroked the girl's face back and forth with his fat palm, looking intoxicated. Ruruah, if it weren't for that good-for-nothing youngest brother of mine, that person had something on him. How could I be chased down from that position? Burp. Everyone urged Lord Huang to drink more. The former Minister of Works, Sir Huang, thought of his past glory and compared it to today, he became even more worried. Sect leader, if this succeeds. Lord Huang patted his chest and shouted, "Count me in. The reward will definitely not be small." Oh my, dear esteemed guests. Our Jade Hue House's top hostess, Miss Ran, has come to meet everyone. Second manager Chi, who was squinting his eyes, was originally hugging and teasing an 18 or 19-year-old girl in his arms. When he heard the brothel keeper's call, he quickly turned around to take a look. When he saw Zhao Qiran's thin makeup and picturesque appearance, his soul immediately flew out of his body and his mouth began to salivate. Lord Huang and the others also stood up and surrounded her like a swarm of flies. "Aya, our Miss Ran is here. Long time no see, miss. You're still as graceful as ever." Aha! As Lord Huang spoke, he reached out to hug Miss Ran. The brothel keeper hastily stepped forward to separate Lord Huang from her and chuckled mischievously. "Dear guests, our Miss Ran only sells her skills and not her body. How about having her play the zither and dance for everyone to liven up the mood?" Zheng Chao's face darkened, and he threw his cup on the table with a bang. Chapter 1070. You don't know how to appreciate favors. This is His Excellency, Cult Master. Why don't you hurry over and properly serve him? Zheng Chao scolded with a cold expression, then turned to look at the Cult Master with an obsequious smile. "Please don't take offense, Cult Master." The Cult Master absent-mindedly looked up at Miss Ran, who was standing at the door. Unlike the other gorgeously dressed women in this building, this 18 or 19-year-old girl was dressed neatly and plainly. She was wrapped in a light-colored robe, unlike the other girls who revealed their too slender and fair thighs. Miss Ran was wrapped up very tightly. Her brows and eyes actually couldn't be considered very good-looking, but the combination of her facial features gave her an attractive charm. This Miss Ran had a different kind of charm and pride. The procuress's expression stiffened slightly, and then she said to everyone with an obsequious smile, "Honored guests, our Jade Hue Parlor's Miss Ran isn't like the other girls in this building. Miss Ran is just like her name, clean and spotless. She can play the zither and sing, but if it's anything else..." Clang! Zheng Chao angrily slapped the wine pot to the ground and stood up. He pointed at the procuress and cursed. "How can you be so tactless, procuress? It's fine if you shirk your duties to us normally. But today, you dare to be so impudent in front of the Cult Master? You really don't want to live anymore, do you? She's just a girl in this building, yet she dares to be so pretentious?" Sir Huang belched and jeered. The procuress was so frightened that her face drained of color. She was just a normal person. Although she was accustomed to grand occasions, State Uncle Zheng's accumulated power in the past was too great. Now that he was angry, the procuress was a bit fearful. However, Zhao Qiran said indifferently, "Withdraw first. I'll deal with this." The procuress immediately nodded. Before leaving, she glanced at Zhao Qiran rather worriedly, then hurried to the rear courtyard after exiting the private room. The Cult Master looked up and paused for a moment at her departing figure. Then, he retracted his gaze and glanced at Zhao Qiran. Seeing this girl's stiff body and pursed lips, he couldn't help but find it amusing. He flicked his sleeve lightly and said in a wanton and flirtatious manner, "Pour wine." Zhao Qiran's body stiffened slightly. She sat down next to the Cult Master and obeyed his orders. She poured a cup of wine for him, but her eyes never strayed and she didn't move. Everyone else looked at her in astonishment. Sir Huang, who was hugging a little flower and fondling her up and down, turned around to take a look. He couldn't help but sneer. Cult Master actually likes this kind of woman? I think she's not as good as the one I'm carrying. Look at him. He was dull and emotionless. Look at how good this green leaf beside me is. She's obedient, well-behaved, and sensible. When she serves people, she knows how to do things. The woman called Lu Yi glanced somewhat awkwardly at Miss Ran. Her status couldn't even compare to a single strand of Miss Ran's hair. It was no wonder that Miss Ran's expression was slightly unsightly at this moment. The Cult Master chuckled. After 3 rounds of wine, he stood up. This venerable one and ran, or will be leaving first. Everyone immediately exchanged a "we all understand" look and winked at each other before chuckling vulgarly. All right, Miss Ran, you'd best obediently serve our venerable cult master. If there's any mishap, be careful of your delicate skin and tender flesh. Zhao Qiran's body was completely stiff. The cult master was amused. Without saying anything else, he directly pulled Miss Ran away. Chapter 1071. Zhao Qiran originally wanted to struggle, but the sect master spat out a burst of energy, and she immediately couldn't budge. She stiffly allowed the sect master to pull her away, unable to conceal the shock in her eyes. It was for no other reason than the sect master softly whispering in her ear, "This venerable one knows that you're a member of the Rakshasa ghost sect." Seeing Miss Ran stiffen, the sect master wickedly curled his lips and dragged the girl into the room, slamming the door with a bang. That door heavily slammed into Miss Ran's heart, causing her to be so shocked that she almost couldn't breathe. The man in front of her had an extremely shocking aura, causing her mind to waver for a moment. "Sit down and drink another cup with this venerable one. I believe that your sect master will arrive very soon." The sect master pressed the girl to sit down and unsealed her acupoint with one finger. He swirled the wine cup in his hand, his tone not allowing her to refuse. "You, don't worry. As long as you cooperate well, this venerable one won't make things difficult for you." The sect master's lips curled slightly, and he indifferently drank a cup before leisurely saying, "Hey, put away that dagger in your sleeve. Be careful not to stupidly cut yourself. If this venerable one wanted you, do you think you could do anything to this venerable one with that lousy dagger in your hand?" The sect master glanced at her with a spurious smile. Zhao Qiran blinked and looked at him in astonishment. He knew. He actually knew everything? "You, then what do you want to do?" The sect master suddenly reached out, and a suction force pulled her into his embrace, causing her to sit on his lap. "I heard that you, the top hostess of Jade Hue Parlor, have all the men in the capital scrambling after you like a flock of ducks." His thin and soft sleeve brushed past her small face, and a faint smile tugged at his lips. "You've seen so many men, so you're the most qualified to speak. This venerable one asks you, do you think this venerable one stinks?" Zhao Qiran. Why was she suddenly speechless? This esteemed sect master. What kind of damn question was this? Sigh. The sect master's beautiful eyes narrowed in melancholy, and his thin lips pursed as he looked at Miss Zhao and asked, "I'll ask you again. When this venerable one hugs you, do you feel any discomfort?" Miss Zhao looked at him with a dumbfounded expression. Why is it that this sect master, who looks so elegant and talented, seems to have some problems with his brain? "Why didn't you answer when I asked you a question?" The hierarch's face turned cold, and the smile on his face turned cold in an instant. Zhao Qiran was flabbergasted by his quick change in attitude. "It's not without a sense of comfort," Zhao Qiran stammered in reply. The sect leader was furious. With a flick of his sleeve, he threw her to the ground and stood up abruptly. "Liar! Zhao Qiran, if you still don't speak the truth, this seat will tear down your jade color house." "Zhao Qiran, what should I say? Isn't this sect leader a bit too temperamental?" Indeed, it's not very comfortable." Zhao Qiran could only agree with him. The cult master's brows relaxed, and he immediately smiled. He stretched out his long arms and happily picked Miss Ran up from the ground. Once again, he held her in his arms like a baby. He stroked the back of her head and asked, "Is this comfortable?" Zhao Qiran's body stiffened. Her head wooden as she shook her head. This cult master seemed to be a sick person. "You women always like to call stinky men stinky men. Could it be that this venerable one really stinks?" Chapter 1072. Zhao Qiran. What should she say? If she denied it, perhaps this esteemed cult master would turn his back on her like a madman. Thus, Zhao Qiran nodded reluctantly. The cult master immediately sighed. "No wonder she doesn't like me. Tell me, this cult master baths twice a day, and even my clothes have incense on them. How can I still stink? Forgive me for not answering this question of yours. Miss Rand tightly pursed her lips and simply didn't say a word. In reality, she only smelled a faint fragrance on this cult master's body and didn't have any unpleasant odor. Moreover, when this cult master hugged her, to be honest, she actually didn't feel any revulsion. His hug was natural like water and didn't seem vulgar at all. It really couldn't be said to be uncomfortable. How do you women like to be hugged? Horizontally or vertically? The cult master humbly asked for advice. Zhao Chuan, Princess, why haven't you come to rescue this subordinate? Knock knock. Two soft sounds came from the window, and a low voice softly said, Cult master, the Raksha princess is still several kilometers away from here. She'll probably arrive in less than 3 minutes. Upon hearing this, the cult master immediately pushed Zhao Chuan away from his lap and turned back to give him a charming smile. This cult master will seek your advice next time. I'll take my leave first today. With that, he nimbly flipped out of the window. Like a wisp of flowing cloud, his figure instantly vanished without a trace. Bam! The door to the room was forcefully kicked open by a beautiful woman. A pair of beautiful eyes darted back and forth, and the Raksha princess sweetly called out with her innate baby voice, Ding Lang. Then, she looked dumbfoundedly at Zhao Chuan, who sat paralyzed on the ground and couldn't move at all. Why is it only you? Where did Ding Lang go? As she spoke, mystic chi shot out from her fingertip and suddenly hit Zhao Chuan's sealed acupoint. Zhao Chuan heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly stood up to bow. Princess Cult Master left just now. Princess Raksha gritted her teeth and stomped her feet. She turned around and chased after Ding Yun, shouting, Ding Yun, you little bastard, let's see where you can run to. Cult Master Ding, who was already far away, couldn't help but tremble when he heard Princess Luosha's shout. He hurriedly ran even faster. It wasn't until he had run quite a distance that he slowed down and let out a sigh of relief. That was close. He was so close to being caught by that crazy woman. Sectmaster, this subordinate has something to report. Left Protector, if you have something to say, just say it. The sect leader, who had just recovered from the shock, turned his head and glanced at the man who had followed him like a shadow. The Holy Maiden left the headquarters several days ago and headed for the Mystic Beast Forest. At this moment, she should be heading to the forest's secret realm together with the elites of each nation to gain experience. The sect master was slightly taken aback, but then nodded. Seacombe Fulling has always been a mischievous person. Why would she want to go to the forest mystic realm this time and do such a thankless task? The secret treasures and spirit weapons in the Mystic Beast Forest mystic realm had always been a legend. He didn't believe that Seacombe Fulling, with her lazy personality, would listen to everyone's rumors and go to the mystic realm to suffer. It said that person is also in the group. Ooh, a foreboding feeling suddenly flashed through the sect master's mind. Prince Mo's consort. A trace of anger flitted across the sect master's picturesque features. Why should she meddle in my affairs? Chapter 1073. The Left Protector was silent. He understood very well that it was best not to speak when this person was in a fit of anger. Otherwise, the more he spoke, the angrier he got, and the more perverted he would do something. It was best to let him calm down silently. How many days has it been since you left? Cult Master Ding asked him with an ugly expression. 4 or 5 days, the Left Protector answered briefly. Suddenly, the Cult Master's figure flashed, and his slender body flashed up a tree. In the time it took to take a breath, a beautiful woman wearing revealing clothes suddenly flashed in front of him and pressed a hand tightly on his shoulder. The Left Protector felt his chest tighten, but he didn't say anything. He only looked at the newcomer in silence. He, Big Brother Left Protector. The Left Protector, this old, which was probably a bit old to be his mother. Hearing her call him Big Brother Left Protector or something, he felt goosebumps all over his body. Okay? Where's your esteemed cult master? The Raksha princess pouted her bright red lips and looked at the Left Protector with misty eyes. Her soft hands seemed to be kneading and squeezing his shoulders. The left protector suddenly felt that at this moment, he was like a pig waiting to be sold at a high price. The owner was testing whether or not this pig was fat enough to be sold. His esteemed cult master actually didn't say anything and directly left his beautiful subordinate behind to climb up a tree. He really wanted to betray him. Big brother Bashan, we haven't seen each other for quite a while. The Raksha princess' delicate hands were like snakes as they stroked down the left protector's square face. She stroked all the way to his neck and gently rubbed his protruding atoms apple back and forth. The left protector Bashan's hair stood on end. Where's your esteemed cult master? The Raksha princess giggled as her soft hands slid down the left protector's stiff chest. She looked like she was going to take advantage of the left protector's entire body. The left protector really wanted to cry, but men don't easily shed tears. He forcibly held them back. Big brother Bashan, if you don't tell me the truth, I'll do you on the spot. I won't be gentle when I'm angry. The Raksha princess said with a serious expression. Cult Master Ding, who was hiding in the dense foliage of the tree, did not dare to move. He hid there and hid his aura, so Princess Luosha couldn't sense him. If he made a move, the consequences would be unimaginable. What a terrifying woman. He would rather die than go down to see this old woman. Bashan, sacrificing her ego to complete my greater ego. Your death will be worth it. Left guardian Bashan's eyes were filled with tears, and his heart was bleeding. He watched as the Luosha princess pushed him to the ground. His clothes were ripped apart with a light swipe of the Luosha princess finger. The chastity that he had reserved for the right protector was about to be lost. Sob, sob, sob. Suddenly, a loud bang was heard, and a thick layer of white fog filled the air under the tree. The left protector suddenly felt his body lighten, and someone picked him up and ran away. Flustered and exasperated, Princess Raksha only managed to grab half of Cult Master Ding's lapel. When she rushed out of the thick white fog, how could she still see Cult Master Ding? Ding Yin, you little brat. Let's see where you can run to. The Raksha princess rubbed her slender fingers and snorted angrily. When I catch you, I'll torture you to death in 360 different ways. Chapter 1074. Princess. A soft, stammering voice was heard. Are we going back now? No. The Raksha princess looked like she was going to fight Cult Master Ding to the end. How's the investigation going? This subordinate found out that the Holy Maiden left the demonic cult's headquarters several days ago and headed for the mystic beast forest. This little bitch must have bewitched Brother Cult Master, so he won't accept my goodwill no matter what. The Raksha princess angrily said, Let's go to the mystic beast forest to meet this little bitch. That female subordinate speechlessly glanced at the Raksha princess before silently following her. In reality, the princess had pursued Cult Master Ding for so many days, but when had Cult Master Ding ever cared about her? He was clearly rejecting her. The Raksha princess's exquisite face was taut as she suddenly asked, How many days has it been since my shield left? The female subordinate hastily replied, Ever since you sent her to Balon City to search for a spirit weapon, she hasn't returned. It's been a very, very long time. The Raksha princess indignantly flung her sleeves. Despicable. Everything is against me. The female subordinate didn't dare utter another word and hastily left with her. Malian's section break. After exiting the Honghai Temple, a group of low-key carriages headed for the palace. Mo Yin leaned against the brocade next to the window and gently rubbed her head with one hand. The restoration and reconstruction of Nimpan Tower was going smoothly. According to the normal speed, it would probably be completed within a year. Without these vexing matters, he also felt much more relaxed. Once his little crown princess returned safely, he could happily consummate the wedding. When he thought of this, Prince Mo's lips curled up and a faint smile appeared on his face. I wonder if this little fellow is having fun in the mystic realm? Whoosh! A light sound rang out. Prince Emon narrowed his eyes and turned his head to the side, only to see a short arrow abruptly pierce through the thick curtain and nail itself to the window frame. The arrow's tail quivered, and there was even a piece of bright yellow silk cloth wrapped around the arrowhead. Who goes there? The guards outside shouted angrily and drew their swords. Huifeng impatiently lifted the curtain and called out, "Your Highness." "I'm fine." Prince Imo shook his head calmly. Huifeng quickly bowed and boarded the carriage. He took out the bright yellow silk cloth that Prince Imo had tied to the window lattice and handed it to the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince only glanced at it. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the signature on the silk cloth, "Ding, ting, ding." Then, his face suddenly turned cold. Without saying a word, he got out of the carriage and hurriedly rushed in a certain direction. "Your Highness!" Huifeng and the others were alarmed, and they hastily followed after him. The group of people had just turned the corner when they saw more than a dozen men wearing ferocious-looking masks pouncing on them. The two sides started to fight on the spot. The Crown Prince's figure floated to an arch bridge like a wisp of smoke. This small stone arch bridge had a very steep slope, and a tall figure in a bewitching purple stood in the center of the slope. Ding, ting, ding. Imo Yin gazed icily at the figure in front of her. "MHM, it's me." That person turned around, revealing a smiling face that resembled the Methriel Buddha. He looked benevolent and exceptionally amiable. However, this smiling face truly didn't match the murderous aura emanating from his body in the slightest. Imo Yin naturally wouldn't foolishly believe that this appearance was Ding Ting Ding's original appearance. "You came to throw away your life." Crown Prince Imo sneered, his extremely frigid gaze landing on the other party. Chapter 1075. He hadn't even had the time to find trouble with this person, and this person had delivered himself to his doorstep. If this wasn't seeking death, then what was? It's not certain who will die yet. Ding Ting Ding extended a slender, white finger and shook it forcefully in the air. His gaze circled back and forth on his body. Tisk, tisk. He lightly laughed. A trace of cold mockery slid across the man's lips, slowly but clearly enunciating each word. "Prince Imo, this lord has received a valuable gift from others, so this lord will naturally keep his promise. This lord will take your precious life." Imo Yin couldn't help but sneer, 5 clusters of flames dancing between her raised fingers. Ding Ting Ding's laughter was low and deep, and he suddenly flung out a wriggling little snake with a wave of his hand. Unfortunately, before it could fly in front of Imo Yin, it was burned to ashes by a cluster of flames. "If I beat you, how about you give me this beautiful skin on your body?" Ding Ting Ding blinked, with a humble and pleading appearance. "If I use your skin to make a beauty drum and give it to the little girl, she'll definitely be very happy." Imo Yin couldn't be bothered to pay attention to this person. Such a despicable move. Did he think that a few threatening words would be able to shake her heart that was as hard as iron? Too laughable. "You should first think about whether you'll have another chance to live if you lose to me." A streak of fire suddenly descended, and the two people flew forward. The slender, jet-black Raven Moon sword clashed with a sparkling green longsword. That sword was actually made of vines, but it was abnormally sturdy. A great spirit master who comprehended the wood spirit? She really underestimated this little thief. Imo Yin's eyes flashed slightly, and the fire spirit covered the Raven Moon sword, and a terrifying spirit energy directly pounced on the other party. Chi! The red flames instantly turned purple, enveloping the green vine sword in Ding Ting Ding's hand, and instantly burning it to ashes. What a powerful fire spirit. Is it a 9th level spirit fire? Ding Ting Ding blinked and smiled, and 5 or 6 vines suddenly drilled out of his sleeves, whipping straight towards the ground. Imo Yin shifted her feet and quickly leaped up to avoid the vines that were thrown at her. When the purple flames landed on the snake-like vines, they were instantly burned to ashes. As expected, an 8th stage wood spirit against a 9th stage spirit fire is still too forceful. "Then, try my spiritual weapon," Ding Ting Ding mumbled to himself. "Try my earth treasure bell of heaven and earth. This is a spiritual artifact that has been forcibly sealed to the 15th level. It's not just a spiritual artifact." Ding Ting Ding called out somewhat childishly, "Take this." In the blink of an eye, A gigantic black bell jumped out from his conscious and headed straight for Mo Lien to envelop him. If he was caught by this bell, he was afraid that he would really have to give up his life here. Mo Lien's lips curled into a sneer as she flicked her sleeve. The other party was coming at them menacingly, so how could they not accept the challenge? No matter what, they couldn't lose to this little thief. Suddenly, his figure flashed, and when he appeared again, he was already in front of the Earth Treasure Bell of Heaven and Earth. With extremely fast hand speed, he made a few complicated hand seals that couldn't be seen clearly by the naked eye. A pitch-black lotus with a faint light suddenly appeared in his hand. It looked as if it was as light as a feather, completely unable to withstand a single blow. In reality, when it collided with the ferocious Earth Treasure Bell of Heaven and Earth, that Earth Treasure Bell of Heaven and Earth was actually sent flying back several meters by the impact of the Black Lotus, and it began to spin in midair. Chapter 1076. Boom! The pitch-black lotus flower actually exploded in an instant, producing a huge burst of energy that instantly sent the Heaven-Earth Bell flying. Ding Ting-Ding's expression didn't change, but he was shocked on the inside. He reached out to recall the bell and sized up Mo Lien with a smile on his face. Seems a bit interesting. Prince Mo, even with his eyesight, he actually couldn't recognize what kind of technique Prince Mo's hand seal was. Mo Lien didn't say a word. She directly pinched out several ink-colored lotus flowers and threw them at Ding Ting Ding. He had only comprehended the second realm of the Death Lotus Seal's inheritance, but it was more than enough to deal with a little mystic cultivator whose cultivation was sealed at level 15. Are you prepared to die? Thief Sage Ding Ting Ding. Mo Lien pursed her thin lips and pounced forward, her slender fingers grabbing the other party's arm. The purple flames burning on her fingers were about to burn through Ding Ting Ding's arm. Yet he suddenly opened his mouth. After fusing with the demonic beast Fire Qilin Fang Snake, the poison had long become one with his body. At this moment, he spat out a mouthful of mist. If it were anyone else, they would definitely be caught off guard and fall for it. Unfortunately, Mo Lien had long been on guard against him, and he was an apothecary who could resolve all kinds of abnormal conditions in the body. Thus, this kind of Fire Qilin Fang Snake's poison was naturally completely useless against him. At this moment, a black lotus imprint appeared on Mo Lien's palm. She flew up and took advantage of Ding Ting Ding's momentary lapse of confusion to press her palm, which contained a huge amount of mystic energy, on Ding Ting Ding's chest with a bang. However, he suddenly felt a slight stabbing pain in his palm and abruptly pulled it back. Cough! Ding Ting Ding abruptly took a step back, and a trace of blood inevitably slid down from the corner of his mouth. He suddenly laughed hysterically. Mo Lien, oh Mo Lien, do you think you've won? Take a look at your hand, okay? Mo Lien looked down at her palm expressionlessly. There was a small pinhole in the center of her palm, and a drop of blood had already formed. Ding Ting Ding smugly raised his head and laughed. I purposely placed a poison needle here. You've been fooled this time. Prince Mo, you're about to die. Ha ha ha. My beauty skin is finally here. Mo Lien didn't make a sound. She only took advantage of the moment when Ding Ting Ding raised his head and laughed to leap into the air like a ghost. With a grab and press, she locked Ding Ting Ding's shoulder. Ding Ting Ding's pitch-black eyes flashed with a dark light. Without thinking, a green vine sword formed in his hand and viciously stabbed towards Prince Mo's heart. This fast, vicious, and accurate sword strike at close range was naturally blocked by Prince Mo's full-body spiritual armor. A close-range lotus seal once again slammed into Ding Ting Ding's chest. The lotus seal even exploded several times on his body. In the blink of an eye, half of the bridge pier was blasted into smithereens. Ding Ting Ding glanced at him in astonishment before falling down along with the shattered pier. He seemed to be very surprised. Prince Mo had clearly been pierced by the poison needle in his chest earlier. So why was he completely fine and didn't have any reaction at all? Mo Lien lowered her head to glance at the small red dot in her palm. Her body suddenly swayed, and she coughed softly, Huifeng and the others quickly rushed to her side and shouted with rapt attention, "Your Highness!" Mo Lien waved her hand to stop him from speaking. "Return to the Eastern Palace immediately." An eighth layer with spirit great spiritual master who had also fused with the power of evil beasts wasn't easy to deal with. Chapter 1077. Cult Master, how are you? The left protector, who was supporting the drenched man and walking briskly along the riverbank, exclaimed softly in shock. Cough, cough, cough. Although the cult master was in a sorry state, extreme joy floated between his brows. Ha ha! Cough, cough. The left protector hurriedly took out a medicinal pill and fed it to him. Cult Master, your heart was heavily injured by a dagger earlier, and it hasn't fully recovered during this period. Now, your heart has been struck by Prince Mo's palm again and again. You had better take care of your body. Ha ha, cough. How much better do you think he is than me? The cult master smiled smugly. I merely received 2 palm strikes from him. It'll be fine as long as I shift the important organs in my body. He said indifferently, it's not like I'll die. He's different. He was poisoned by the devil grass, and no one in the world can cure him. Ha! Cough, cough. He's dead for sure. Right now, he still doesn't know that he'll soon become a corpse. Ha ha ha. After saying this, the cult master laughed crazily again until he spat out a mouthful of blood before stopping. Cult Master? The left protector turned pale with fright as he supported his worrisome master, somewhat blaming him for not cherishing his body. The cult master's playfulness was his second nature, and his emotions were hard to discern. When had he ever seen someone injure him to this extent? How could he still laugh? Take me to the mystic beast forest. He abruptly grabbed his wrist. The left protector's dog eyes widened in shock. Cult Master, why do you still want to go to the mystic beast forest when you're injured like this? Shouldn't he immediately return to the headquarters to treat his injuries? Less nonsense. Take me there. The cult master coughed up blood, and his body involuntarily pressed down on the left protector. The left protector looked down and saw that his master had fainted just like that. He couldn't help but be anxious and angry, but he didn't dare to go against his master's wishes. He could only find a place to treat his master's injuries before taking him to the mystic beast forest. He thought, how did I end up with a master like you? Idiot ding, ting ding. After 7 days and 6 nights of killing profound beasts, he was endlessly absorbing the boundless profound energy in this place. Arbor frantically assimilated the essence earth in his body and smoothly advanced a level without any mishaps, stepping into the ranks of level 13 mystic cultivators. Looking inside, he found that less than a third of the life essence earth was left after the rapid fusion. It seemed that the estimated fusion time would be much faster. She suddenly opened her eyes, her heart beating like a drum for no reason, and her mind was in a strange panic. She hurriedly reached out to soothe her noisy chest and looked up at the blue sky in the mystic realm with a puzzled expression. What's going on? For a moment, he felt very flustered. Before she could think about it, she heard a series of heavy footsteps. He didn't even need to look to know that it was that damned giant ape senior. The giant ape arrived in front of her and suddenly stretched out its hairy arms, lifting her up as usual. He did not allow her to resist at all. Stomp, stomp, stomp. His fat and thick feet stepped on the soft soil as he carried her back to the stone tablet. Xiao Xiao. When Six Zheng saw her appear, he couldn't help but sigh in relief. In truth, they had already been released from the sealed space 2 days ago, but Six Zheng had not seen Arbor's figure the entire time, so he was secretly anxious. Chapter 1078. Seeing that she was safe and sound this time, he relaxed. Qin Susu also nodded slightly at Arbor. This mystic realm was rather strange. When she was first isolated in that damned sealed space, she was almost torn to shreds by the swarms of mystic beasts. When she recalled how the second young master had told her to protect Miss Xiao at all costs after entering the mystic realm, she couldn't help but blush. It seemed like there was nothing she could do to help. Even now, She only suspected that the 10,000-year Xuanji core was inside the small house, but her group couldn't pass through no matter what. Arbor had been carried all the way here by the giant ape. The colossal ape's arm was as thick as 7 or 8 of her thighs. The scene of being carried all the way here was really hard to describe in a few words. Today was the 8th day since they entered the Mystic Realm. Everyone had already completed the first round of the Mystic Beast Mystic Realm's special training. According to the Stone Tablet, those who completed the first round of training only needed to advance by 1 level within 10 days to be able to head to the small house in the forest and pay their respects to Senior Xuanji. However, when they were transported out 2 days ago, little Sixzheng, Qin Susu, Bailey Wu, and Bailey Jin all felt that they had reached the critical point of advancing, but they still hadn't advanced after 2 days. At this time, they all looked at Arbor. When they saw it, their eyes immediately widened in shock. She had advanced. Because Arbor had an aura-concealing talisman on her, her cultivation had been forcibly deducted by 5 levels. Now, everyone saw that the little girl in front of them was at the 8th level of the Mystic Realm. Miss Qiao had always been at the 7th level of cultivation, although her cultivation wasn't quite in line with her strength. Most people attributed this inconsistency to Miss Qiao being a great talisman master. Prince Mo's consort had actually advanced. This meant that she could head to the small house before everyone else. Wei Nanshu looked gloomily at Arbor, his heart filled with indignation. When he thought of how Arbor would be the first to head to the small house to choose a secret treasure, his heart felt like thousands of ants were crawling and rolling. It was extremely unbearable. Prince Mo's consort would definitely be the first to choose the 10,000-year Xuanji core. Senior Giant Ape, isn't this a little unfair? The giggling Seekong fulling appeared in front of the giant ape in a flash. The little girl's cultivation is at the 7th level. It's much easier for her to advance to the 8th level than most of us. After all, everyone knew that the higher one's cultivation level was, the harder it was to advance. The amount of profound energy needed to advance from the 7th level to the 8th level, and the amount of profound energy needed to advance from the 12th level to the 13th level could be said to be the difference between heaven and earth. The difference between a canal and the sea. When everyone heard this, their pupils constricted slightly. A level 12 mystic cultivator. The demonic cult's holy maiden was already a level 12 mystic cultivator at such a young age. Her talent was simply terrifying to the extreme. Without a doubt, the holy maiden's cultivation was the highest among them. Roar, roar. The giant ape was very human-like and roared at her twice, as if it was berating her to quickly retreat. The saintess of the demonic cult, Seekong Fulling, instantly turned hostile. She reached out and grabbed in Arbor's direction. If this young lady slaughters this little girl right now, doesn't that mean that all the rankings will have to be redone? Wei Nanshu, Ying Jian, and the others stood on the sidelines to watch, unable to conceal the schadenfreude in their eyes. It couldn't be any better that the Holy Maiden was willing to make a move. If a level 12 Mystic Cultivator wanted to kill a level 8 Mystic Cultivator, it would be a matter of minutes. Chapter 1079. Arbor was completely expressionless, as if completely unsurprised that this saint of the demonic cult would suddenly attack her. After throwing out a defensive talisman to block the saint's claw, Arbor's figure flickered, and she had already floated behind the giant ape. Roar! Sure enough, the giant ape senior suddenly attacked in the next second. Its plump palm flung out and mercilessly struck the saint of the demonic cult, Seekong Fulling's face, as if it was going to flatten her small face with one slap. The saint dodged slightly to the left. Although she dodged quickly enough, she couldn't match the giant ape's agility. It rushed forward and once again attacked the saint's small face with its fan-like palm. Seekong Fulling's face darkened, and she cursed, "Damn it. This damn giant ape was targeting her face with every move." Could it be that it hadn't heard of not hitting people's faces when hitting them? Xiaomu stood leisurely to the side as she calmly watched this saint of the demonic cult fend off the giant ape's powerful attacks with great difficulty. After the giant ape's several slaps missed the saint's face, it angrily roared at the sky. Eastern Kingdom's eldest crown prince, Jian, who was originally standing on the side to watch the show, was caught off guard by this sound and inexplicably spat out a mouthful of blood. What a powerful sound wave technique! This giant ape could actually use its roar to injure people, so its strength was clearly extraordinary. At this time, the giant ape had already been provoked by the saint of the demonic cult, Sikong Fuling, who was as slippery as a loach. It stayed in this mystic energy-dense mystic realm all year round, so its martial strength was comparable to a peak level 15 mystic cultivator. The more they exchanged blows, the more apprehensive Sikong Fuling became. At the same time, she was well aware that the reason she was able to smoothly enter the mystic realm in the beginning was that this giant ape had not used its full strength. Taking a deep breath, Sikong Fuling suddenly summoned her mystic beast, four-winged, jade-eyed tiger. The moment that mystic beast landed, it roared and fearlessly pounced at the giant ape to bite it. The giant ape roared angrily a few times and stomped on the ground. Its body jumped up and down, nimbly dodging the four-winged, jade-eyed tiger's attack. It then slapped the four-winged, jade-eyed tiger's face. The four-winged, jade-eyed tiger wasn't as lucky as its master. This slap just happened to land on its head, causing it to stagger and shake its head dizzily. Just as Sikong Fuling turned to check on the four-winged, jade-eyed tiger, Arbor suddenly moved. Her agile figure swayed, and dozens of icicles flashing with a cold white light suddenly shot towards Sikong Fuling's back. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Sikong Fuling immediately sensed the approaching danger and rolled on the ground as she dodged several icicles. However, in the next second, he was shocked by Arbor, who suddenly appeared in front of him. The startled swan dagger brushed past the demonic saintess' left cheek. If she hadn't rolled away to avoid it, the startled swan dagger would have slit her throat. The little girl was too ruthless and didn't leave any leeway. The demonic saintess broke out in a cold sweat, but when she turned to look at Arbor, she laughed coquettishly. What a fast dagger! Without a word, Arbor lightly tapped the ground with the tip of its foot and flew into the air. With another flash, the hundreds of icicles in its hand rapidly streaked across the deathly still air. TSK, 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 TSK. The saintess dodged several times in a row, anger flashing through her still eyes as she activated her defensive weapon to block. What a fellow! A little level 8 mystic cultivator forced a level 12 mystic cultivator to retreat without using a talisman. Chapter 1080. With several sizzling sounds, the icicles rained down and continuously struck Sikong Fuling's defensive barrier. The defensive artifact could still block a dozen or so fierce attacks, but which defensive artifact could withstand 100 or so fierce attacks? Sikong Fuling's expression darkened. She slightly relaxed her mystic energy, and the entire defensive barrier was broken open by the icicles with a bam. Bam, bam, bam. Everyone speechlessly turned their heads to look, only to see Senior Giant Ape grinning widely and happily clapping his large, furry palms. His heart was probably biased to God knows where. They originally found it very strange that Senior Giant Ape's enthusiasm for Miss Xiao was completely different from theirs. Could this be a natural affinity for each other? Cough, cough, cough. After the defensive barrier was broken, Sikong Fuling dodged a row of icicles with lightning-like speed. But she was still unavoidably hit in the thigh and elbow by several icicles. Streaks of red abrasions appeared especially conspicuous on her fair skin. Sikong Fuling's gaze had already turned completely cold, and she looked up at Arbor. I originally thought that you were a pretty good girl, but who knew that you also know how to sneak attack from behind? Arbor blinked, but did not speak. He flipped his hand and shot a sharp, aqua-color blade that brushed past Sikong Fuling's scalp, who had suddenly fallen backward. Swish, swish. The flowing water arrow was impossible to guard against. Meanwhile, Jian and the others who were watching from the side were already stupefied by this scene. How could a little level 8 mystic cultivator now beat up a level 12 mystic cultivator? Could it be that Miss Xiao secretly used a talisman without their knowledge? This was too shocking. A fervent glint flashed through Wei Nanshu's eyes. No wonder everyone said that great talisman masters had exceedingly formidable means. It looked like this was indeed the case. You probably used some magic treasure to conceal your cultivation realm. At this time, the Holy Maiden finally understood. She wasn't stupid. After fighting until now, if she still didn't know that Arbor wasn't some level 8 mystic cultivator, then she really could buy a piece of tofu and kill herself. Arbor didn't pay any attention to her. He only glanced at her from the corner of his eyes before looking back at the giant ape. The giant ape seemed to be very happy with her victory. It walked in front of her and stretched out its furry gray arm to grab her. He turned around and left the crowd, minding his own business. A dim light flickered in Wei Nanshu's eyes. His heart was filled with unspeakable jealousy and hatred, but he did not dare to make a move. After all, even Seekong Fuling was unable to gain an advantage over the giant ape, and Arbor's savagery had already left a very deep impression in his heart. With his intelligence and wisdom, it was naturally impossible for him to pick a time like this to stand out. Xiaomi, on the other hand, jumped up happily. You're going to the little hut in the forest to pay your respects to Senior Xuanji. That's great. Sis, you're amazing. The Aikido tribe's Akir involuntarily pursed her lips and sneered. It's not like you're going to the hut yourself. What are you so happy about? Xiaomi harumphed and glanced at her haughtily. What do you know? How can a brainless woman with big breasts like you, who pounces forward at the sight of men, possibly understand the precious sisterhood between us? Akir's face alternated between green and white at Xiaomi's blunt words. She twisted her body and stomped her feet. She hugged Ali's arm and called out delicately, Ali, look at her. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.